is up, Rotogrinders? 5 o'clock on the East Coast. That is the new time, assuming there's nothing goofy as far as schedules and things like that, as far as the baseball schedule. We're starting 5 o'clock. Take you guys straight up to lock. Lineup lock tonight. As always, Crunch Time is free thanks to Fanduel. Y'all get Crunch Time for free this season. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. I believe it's Squirrelpatrol, who's won several live finals, been in a pile, as well as DerekCarty, CEO of the Bat and the Blitz. The Bat more important tonight. Today, we're talking to Blender. You know from such things as the early show. Does it have a name? What is the name of the Blender show?
The DFS pregame show. Aren't we colleagues in the same company?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't forget the name of your show. In our morning, I say you got to tune into GrindersLive. Not you got to tune into whatever show Dean's on. I don't say that. You
invite me on the show once, and maybe I'll learn the name.
It's a solo show. We'll be doing GrindersLive in the morning enough times for MLB anyway.
Also, you know, from such things as now I got to pull it up and confirm. I make sure I get that
right. You don't know where Keith is from. You have no idea where he's from.
Well, no, I was gonna give you a second plug. If you guys.
You're not even gonna give Keith the first plug. I'm already getting my second.
No, he's on layaway. You're batting first. You're the appetizer. He's the main course. I was gonna mention your game theory channel. In the Discord. But if you don't want me to mention that, I don't have to. I can move on.
I mean, I can't answer anything in there now while I'm on the show. But yeah. Join Rotogrinders Premium. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month, and you get into my Discord channel. You get to talk DFS strategy and join the coaching calls.
And Keith from such things as doing content at Rotogrinders. I believe he's currently based in Arizona. I won't give the exact coordinates in case there's any stalkers out there. Formerly of Illinois, I believe. Do I have that correct, Keith?
I grew up in Illinois, but I moved away from there a long time ago. Spent some time in Oklahoma City in between.
All right. Well, I did
Dallas also. Yeah, you got the first and the last part. That's the important part.
Well, what else do you do? I mean, you do content for what? 2, 3, 4 sports here?
4 at least: baseball, football, basketball, MMA. Doing a lot of stuff for Scores and Odds as well. Writing up premium picks, and then I've got a daily article 4 times a week, icebreakers, writing up some props for Scores and Odds. So you check that out. It's a free article in the news section of Scores and Odds.
Yeah, scoresandodds.com. It's your number one place for all things sports betting. Make sure to check that out. Expert picks, analysis, tools. So I know Lucha is working on a free article. That's what you're talking about, right? The Breaking the Ice. Is that a free article you said?
Yeah. Yep. I'm doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can catch that. So there's one up there today. Just click on that news section and Scores and Odds, and you can find it there.
Also, if you're dabbling in those hockey streets, today happens to be a 10-game slate. I mean, look, I don't know anything about hockey, but I'm not just going to tell you to stack the Panthers, future Stanley Cup champions, to stack them up. But I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to hockey. There's a 10-gamer going down. If you guys do not have a premium, you don't have the combo premium, you can get a peek for free. You can check out the NHL game with Slate Summary, I believe it's called. I think Taylor wrote that up, if I'm not mistaken. So feel free to check that out if you guys are dabbling in the old hockey. Playoffs starting there, I believe, a week or two? Oh, it's going to be fun times. Basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, baseball. How are the MMA streets treating you, Keith? I believe Blender, is he kind of sort of an expert? Am I using air quotes? I think Blender just bets the goofiness and the variance and some random person gets a tap out and all of a sudden he binks. How's MMA going? I don't know. I was going to say this season, but there's not really seasons, is there? It just never ends.
Yeah, Blender showed up and he's taking all the money. So it's been a rough go here. Blender's rocking the MMA streets.
Well, I'll yield the Blender. Talk about do you consider yourself like an expert, or you're just good at game theory and understanding, how to take advantage of leverage and take advantage of ownership and things like that?
That's all I'm doing. MMA is very high variance. A fight could one punch or one takedown could change the whole aspect of a fight, and people get too confident. I mean, I read Keith Stuff, the expert survey. I listen to the ground and pound. I need context because all I'm doing is my work is based on betting lines. So it's all I'm doing is trying to figure out the probability of a fighter scoring 100 plus points and then comparing that versus the ownership. So there are a lot of times where why are people confident in certain spots? And the context, I may not even know who these fighters are. I may see a fighter with inside the distance, minus 120, but it's kind of unless they get a first round knockout, they're just not going to score enough points in the second or third rounds. So it's like if that's a high variance fight. I try to target the high variance fights, not the low variance ones. And the write-ups here on Rotogrinders allow me to identify the context behind the betting lines. But there are also betting lines where, like this past slate, I'm sure Keith didn't roster much of Alan Tangeli, and I was like 3 times the field because, this guy hasn't finished anyone in 2 years or whatever. And I'm just like, he's plus 45, 245 inside the distance. He's going to be 11% owned, which means he finishes higher than the ownership. Why not throw in the guy, right? And I do that type of stuff. So a lot of times you'll see my lineups, they'll look wacky when it comes to the analysis. But if there's a fighter that people are like, can't play this female fight, the women's fight, it's going to be minus 300. It's going to go to the distance. And it's like, yeah, they'll be 8% owned. And it doesn't go to the distance like 21% of the time. And hopefully one of the women put up, 120 points. And I'm sitting there and I look like a genius. And I'm not a genius. It's just like, I'm going to benefit from the times that the weird things happen enough that, I win a bunch.
Yeah, if you want to get that MMA, combo premium, you can get baseball, of course, we're talking about, the lineup HQ, the optimizer, projections, all that good stuff, the expert survey. But you can get that a la carte if you just want baseball. That's what you're here for. We're going to talk baseball in a second. Don't worry, we have plenty of time. Again, we're here for the next 2 hours, all the way up to lock. Us and then Crunch Time will be joining around 6:30 on the East Coast. But you get, all the sports, MMA, golf, which never seems to end. USFL is now a thing. F1 is a Formula One racing. NBA, NHL. I'm probably missing a couple sports. CS:GO, I believe, is still a thing. I don't partake, but it's my understanding it's still real. Everything but NASCAR, essentially, you can get for all one price. You can get NASCAR a la carte, Stevie's package. But all right, let's talk about tonight's slates. Blender, you're usually pretty good at just kind of like, 11 gamer. Not a lot of great weather out there still. There's a core slate. There's an elite. There's some good pitchers, but a clear number one pitcher in Corbin Burns. But can you kind of big picture this slate? Fanduel, DK, a little bit different. Fanduel does not have the second half of that Arizona game for what it's worth. So their slate, I believe, starts at 7:10 on the East Coast. DK did include it, so it's 11 games there, 10 games on FanDuel. Yeah, the back half of the Arizona-Washington doubleheader is on DK tonight, not FanDuel. And doubleheaders this year, by the way, 9 innings. They're not 7 innings anymore. So, it used to be kind of a thing where at least I wouldn't play anybody in those 7-inning doubleheaders. And then randomly you get somebody hit a couple homers in the first couple of bats, and then there you go. And then Blender wins probably, because Blender probably played those for all we know. But Blender, give me your big picture as far as tonight's slate. Yes, the Phillies flopped yesterday.
I didn't have any Phillies yesterday. I did very well.
Did you win? Well, there you go. That's.
I came in fifth in the $88 one. I made like $2,500 yesterday.
You had some Yelich?
No, I didn't have Milwaukee. I had Houston plus Dodgers plus Reds. So I had Tommy Pham. Yeah. But other Reds that didn't do any, and Kershaw got I had him in my best lineup, and he got kind of killed in the 6th inning. So that cost me maybe like $3,000 or something. I could have gotten up to 3rd. But yeah. So but on this slate tonight, I'm viewing it very similarly. The Phillies, the Cords game is going to be the chalk. It's going to be chalky, not as chalky as yesterday, because yesterday there was functionally only 7 games because of 2 postponements. Now we have a 10-game slate on FanDuel. I'm playing on FanDuel tonight versus DraftKings because the payout structures on both sites for the big contest are both garbage, and FanDuel is just cheaper. So I'm just going to play more of. But if I'm going to 30,000 the first, 100,000 the first, set of steak knives to 10th place, I'll play on the site that it's $5 an entry, not $15 an entry. So I'm on FanDuel today, but it's kind of similar on both sides. I
just want to say FanDuel's got the giant slam tonight, which is only 20% up top, like $44 to get in there, $250K as far as total prize pool, and $50K up top. So
that's a little bit better. I'm playing 2 entries into that only because I got a little offer in my app, but that you get 2 to buy 2 get 1 free or something. I get $44 back.
I didn't get that. I bought. I like a chump. I bought like 4. It's like flat. Oh, I should have held out for more. Go ahead.
Yeah, you gotta hold it. You gotta be nitty like me on FanDuel, and I get the if you want to enter this, we'll give you a little nibble back. So, okay, fine. Fine, you're going to give me $44 back. I'll get 2 entries, 3 entries, whatever.
I'll be writing an email.
Do I have to put in 3? Is it a 2 for 1? Did I do this right?
I don't know.
Put in 2? I think I have to put in another one. Let me put in another one. I think I got okay. So my dummy lineup will be whatever that is. Okay, there, I got it. Now I got 101 entries on FanDuel. But I'm viewing this slate very similarly on both sites. There's kind of some weird pricing on DraftKings that we can talk about batter wise in a little bit. But to me, I'm going to go with the same thing that I did. The Phillies are going to be chalky on FanDuel, especially where you could fit them in. They're expensive, but they're not cost prohibitive. The pitching pricing, if you're not going to play Burns, even if you play Burns, you could still play a 4-man Philly stack. But if you're going to play anyone underneath Burns, even like Eovaldi or Bueller, Ray's 9,900, you could still fit them in. So I'm expecting Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, Hoskins, all those guys. Maybe you get one of the cheaper bats in on FanDuel. And I'm doing what I did yesterday. I'm just going to there's 9 other games on this slate. And if the Phillies do well, it's quite possible the Phillies stack still doesn't win. So all I need to do is dodge big games. I need to dodge a 30, 40 pointer from some of these guys. We just got the Phillies lineup out. So Segura's leading off, Hoskins, Harper, Castellanos. So Schwarber's batting 6th today. Bohm's in the lineup. Okay, so no Camargo. He was a little bit cheaper on FanDuel. But I'm more likely, I'm gonna do what I did yesterday. That's what I'm doing, at least. You can get different in other places, but I think it's much harder on FanDuel, especially. Maybe DraftKings, I guess, also, on getting different at pitcher without really going down the rabbit hole of Mylanta with some of the cheaper pitching. So I think my player pool on FanDuel for the pitching is going to be quite small. I'm not going to really there's one leverage spot that I may try on one of these pitchers, but I'll still have him in a bunch of lineups. So I'm, at least from a strategic standpoint for me, I'm going to be focused on a very narrow, the best rejected pitchers. And then I'm going to be making combos of maybe 10, 12 different teams that are not the Phillies. And hopefully the Phillies don't get there. And then one of my combos ends up in first place. I think that's the best path to first place, rather than try with a 4 or 5 man Philly stack and then, Corbin Burns and then try to get different in the mini stack. It's just, that's not the way that I play MLB. If I see obvious chalk, it's because they're the highest projected stack. It's baseball and the failure rate is so high anyway.
How about yourself, Keith? Did you load up in the Phillies yesterday? Did you take the blender route? How contrarian are you, or does it depend kind of on the day and what you're feeling?
It depends on the day. I did load up on Phillies yesterday. I felt like it was a great spot. The lefties against Cool just felt like a spot that was not going to miss. Well, it's baseball. Guess what? It missed. I will still play Phillies again today. They're just too talented of an offense, but I will take a slightly different approach. I like the bottom of the order. I think Schwarber moving down the order in a lefty-lefty matchup is going to drop his ownership considerably from where we have it right now. Segura, we had projected to bat 6. He's up at the top. So Segura's ownership is going to come up. But I like the bottom of the order now with a Schwarber, Bohm, Bierling type of thing.
The way I think about the Schwarber thing is also Freeland, the lefty, opposing in the mound, lefty on lefty. And, the further down he is in the lineup, the more likely he is to face a righty at his third at bat. That Colorado bullpen is all righties with the exception of one lefty. And you wouldn't think they would take out Freeland and bring in Ty Block. So they're only lefty. So it's a weird, and who knows how good Freeland's going to be going. And if he's going, it's trouble anyway. If you see a third at bat for Schwarber, the lineup's probably not pitching particularly well. Oh, a narrative street on Kyle Freeland just today before this start. He signed a 4-year, $65 million extension. So, hey, maybe he wanted to get that in before the Phillies wallowed them, or who knows? Hometown boy too. I think he's from Denver, so good for him. Congratulations to Kyle Freeland. And we're going to have that conversation. You kind of hinted at it, Blender, and it's a DK specific conversation as far as the Braves. I assume that's what you're talking about. I think you said the Braves, or you maybe hinted at a team was way too cheap. The Braves on DK is wild. I understand Walker Buehler is a really, really good pitcher. Not necessarily somebody I want to pick on, but when I get the punt with, Austin Riley, when I get the punt with Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson and Albies are like not necessarily punts, but they're really, really cheap. I'm curious why. Well, you said you're playing on Fanduel because you like the payout structure, but how do you know how you would handle the Braves today? Because to me, I think that's one of the most fascinating things in the slate.
I think I'm not sure people will look at Walker Buehler and go, even at those prices, why even bother? I think I'm more likely, like I wouldn't play a Braves 5-man with 3 Phillies like that with Corbin Burns or something like that, because you're going to run in. If people are stacking the Braves 5-man, they're going to end up on that like type of construction. And then once you don't stack with Burns and Phillies, that projection starts going down really quickly. So like I'm more likely on, if I were playing on DraftKings in that situation, to maybe play a lot more 3-mans of Atlanta. Also, because they're also facing Walker Buehler, and on a 10-game slate, you got 20 teams. And when you're stacking five guys from a team, you're pretty much banking on that team being the highest scoring team on the entire slate. And Walker Buehler is typically not someone that's going to give up 10 runs or anything. So I'm not sure if even at their price, the 5-man stack from an opportunity cost perspective is worth playing. But I think three players could get there, and to use as like cheap one-offs or something. Marcelo, any of them could hit a home run, right, off of Buehler. Buehler's not going to be that popular. I would be much more interested if Buehler was higher owned, and I don't think he's going to be high owned on either site. So because we have Burns there, we'll talk about pitching in a second.
Yeah.
So the Braves would be more enticing to me if Buehler was more owned at those prices. But also their team total is 3.65. It's towards the bottom on the slate, and I'm not a big fan of stacking teams when you're not getting leverage with that low of projection. Like I did it yesterday with the Reds. You go, the Reds, they're horrible, right? They are batting horrible. But Minaya was like 40% owned. So on a 6-7 game slate. So it's like, okay, I don't mind taking crap team in that type of situation, because I know that if my crap team does well, 40% of my competitors' lineups are also like down in the dumpster. Buehler's just not going to be owned enough. So I think even on DraftKings, it may feel appealing to get those players at those prices. But if you do the 5-man Brave stack, like people are going to have that plus Phillies plus Burns, and you're still kind of running into a chalk construction. So with those two factors, in play, it doesn't appeal to me as much. At some point, yes, the salary is great, right? They're too cheap, but it's still baseball. You still need these guys to put up like 10, 20, 30 points, and I'm not sure that happens against Buehler.
Yeah, my approach is, what you laid out. I don't think I'm going to go 5-man Braves. And I think I'm going to go add as a plus ones. These are all guys that can get there on their own. Like Riley can do it without his teammates. Ozuna can do it without his teammates. Olsen, even Albies, jack in a bag potential. Like, all these guys, they don't necessarily need the team to go off, but like collectively, they're probably not going to put up the most runs. But I think to kind of finish off other lineups that I want, and if they're my punts to get me lineups I actually like, I think I'm good with that. And if you're to trust, Keith, if you're to trust our ownership stuff right now, of course, this stuff changes the closer we get to lock. And maybe people just say, "Oh, Buehler, I'm going to cross out whoever he's facing and not even look at the prices." And it's a West Coast game as well too. We're looking at 7-8% on Ozuna, 7% on Albies, Olsen at 3%, Austin Riley 2.9K, 2%. Again, this stuff may change, but if that's where it's at, I'm definitely going to have more than the field on Atlanta. How are you handling that, Keith?
Yeah, I like Atlanta. Tough matchup, obviously, but the pricing is just too cheap. I mean, Buehler is not invincible. He's going to give up some runs, and he's not a guy, especially early in the season. I just don't see Roberts letting him go deep. He's going to be out there for 5 or 6 innings. The Dodgers bullpen is pretty good, but they're probably not as talented as Buehler. So I don't mind that. Another cheap team that I like a decent amount, who's not catching a ton of ownership, is Minnesota. Arise at the top is, but outside of that, Minnesota is fairly cheap and pretty low owned. And then my favorite pivot stack, I think Boston is way under owned today. I like them quite a bit against the lefty.
Yeah, not great weather there in Boston, but it's not great weather in a lot of places for what it's worth. Boston, well, the winds are blowing, I think, out to center, but it is cold. So maybe I'm curious what Roth has to say about this, because there's several places where wind's blowing out, but it's also cold. And do those two combined together is like a net zero, and it's basically like kind of standard. I mean, I was pulling up the Weather Edge, and that's usually really helpful. But unfortunately, a lot of the Weather Edge stuff, at least as of when I was looking not too long ago, we have just really small samples. We haven't seen a lot of the weather that's out there right now. Let's see what we have as far as Boston, if there's anything. We have actually a sample set. Yeah, 10 games. Like, what am I going to do with that? 10 games similar where the wind's blowing out 14 miles per hour. It's 46 degrees. We've seen a bump of home runs of 14%, but like, I don't know, Blender, that's not a useful sample, right? 10 games, worthless.
Not enough to rely on.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Kansas City of note. You mentioned Minnesota. You mentioned Arise, Keith. And by the way, Arise, I was talking about guys that can get there on their own, like good a la carte plays. And I did it the other day. Like, I think he was super chalky the other day. He kind of made stuff work, batting second or batting first on the road. He's a terrible a la carte play, just awful, just like the worst. Like, he needs multiple good events that work in his favor. He's got to come up with the bases loaded and hit the ball. Like, he's just got no pop at all. He's just a terrible, terrible chalk play. And I say that as somebody that may play some tonight. I don't want to, but did you have a take on that, Keith? Because he seems like just a terrible guy to get, like, when he's popular, unless you're stacking Minnesota.
Yeah,
whatever, sure.
I completely agree with that. I would only play him in 3-man stacks or more. That only in stacks button that's available in lineup HQ. He will definitely be getting the check mark in that box today for me.
Weather pretty good in Colorado, according to a 32-game sample. Wind blowing out to right field, 74 degrees, a bump of homers and 11%, runs at 13%. Yeah, I don't love the 32-game sample, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. Just weather still is just kind of dicey, and that's you see hitting is down in the league, home runs are down in the league. Things are obviously going to change in the summer, but we're all dealing with the same slate tonight. Let's talking about hitters, but let's pivot to pitchers. And whenever Blender's on, I like to have let's have the conversation about the slate. Whatever comes up. And whatever we don't hit, you guys are in chat, you're on the YouTube, you're watching us on the Discord channel, Rotogrinders.com/Discord. Feel free to throw some conversational topics out there. Producer Steve is lurking, producer Devin. They're going to throw them my way. We certainly may miss something. It's an 11-game slate. If you have a specific, like, hey, what about this guy? Or even like a 2v2, we're happy to answer that question. Well, Blender's not happy to answer it, but myself and Keith, we'll answer it for sure. Do put those comments in the chat of YouTube. Hey, YouTube, hit that like button. We appreciate that. Keeps the old proverbial lights on as well. But let's talk about pitching. I'll start with you, Blender. You kind of hinted that you're going to keep it pretty concise, and I'm of the belief that arms, generally speaking, are more predictive than bats. That's just how that goes. Corbin Burns, awesome K rate, nice matchup. On the season, his K rate, well, not on the season. Dating back to last year, 35% as far as Ks. He bounced back nicely in his last start. I think he's like the best guy. Of course, we live in the world of a salary cap. On DK, it's not as hard. Fanduel, a little bit trickier for me. Talk about Burns. Talk about just the general thought as far as pitchers today.
I think there's 3 clear SP1s or even 2 pitcher builds on DraftKings. The pricing's somewhat different between the sites. So the 3 pitchers are Burns, Musgrove, and Ray. And on DraftKings, Musgrove is 8,600, while on FanDuel, he's 11,000. So that's going to temper his ownership on FanDuel. Is he worth 11,000? I don't know. But I mean, he's facing Cincinnati, who's striking out a ton. And, his strikeout prop is 6.5. So, I mean, I don't mind that. On FanDuel, Ray is 9,900. Burns is 10,800. So that's a little bit more similar to DraftKings. And then for cheap options, you can also go like Valdez and Eovaldi are a little slightly overpriced on DraftKings, but I still think they're viable on FanDuel on a one pitcher site. So if you want to take a shot they'll be lower owned. Like Valdez is 9,500 and Eovaldi 7,800 on FanDuel. So I prefer Eovaldi on FanDuel if you're paying down at pitching. And I don't think you have to pay down that much because we have Cole Irvin here against the Orioles. He's not really that much of a strikeout pitcher. So like he's reliant a lot on BABIP. So it's like playing Kyle Hendricks. It's like playing maybe not as bad as playing Zach Greinke, but understand that his upside is limited. If he gives up runs, it's very hard for him to get those points back. I think he's much more viable on DraftKings as an SP2. Especially if you're paying up for a stack, 6,300 on DraftKings. I'm not sure if he's that necessary on FanDuel at 7,100. And cheap in the really cheap range, it may be weird for me to say, I think JT Brubaker at 5,900 against the Brewers. I think the Brewers stack is going to be over-owned today. And although Brubaker is not that great of a pitcher, if you're going to try to get away from like a 22% owned Cole Irvin, I don't mind playing a 2% owned JT Brubaker and hoping for the best, especially when it says here under our especially on FanDuel. FanDuel, you're probably not playing Brubaker, but I mean, we have Milwaukee as like maybe the third or fourth highest owned stack today. And I think they're better off more in like the eighth or ninth best, like most owned stacks should be. So like now you can tell that I'm probably not going to play much in Milwaukee today. And Brubaker in the bat projects fairly well enough for his price tag that if you want to take a shot on that, I wouldn't be against it.
Let's hold like the Brewbakers on layaway for a second. I do want to talk about it and Irvin, because I think Irvin's a really interesting conversation because he seems like bad chalk. But like, you're just hoping. And like you said, it was important to say, Blender, you're talking about, you give it 3 runs in the first inning. A guy like Cole Irvin has a really, really hard time recovering and like still kind of salvaging. But, Corbin Burns can give 2 runs in the first and still he can strike at 12. And who cares what those 2 runs he gave in the first inning? Right? Like you have a chance to recover. Like once Irvin gives up several runs, we're in some serious trouble. Of course, it's possible he gives up none. I suppose that's a route as well.
Yeah, but a lot of times, Dean, he'll have a stat line, which it's 6 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs, 3 strikeouts.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's sitting and maybe gets the win and he's sitting there with like 14 points. And it's like, okay, that isn't bad especially for 6,300. That isn't bad. But Cole Irvin really isn't the type of pitcher where like I'm scared to fade him, that he's going to come up and have 9 strikeouts in 7 innings. So like at 22% ownership on DraftKings, that's why I'm talking about guys like Brubaker. It's like there's really no reason other than obviously the Orioles suck way more than the Brewers, but it shouldn't be a 22-2 ratio on the ownership there. It should be more like Cole Irvin 16, Brubaker 6 or something. So do I say now an option is to stack the Orioles against him? Like that's chalk SP2. That isn't that great of a pitcher, especially not a strikeout pitcher. And that's completely viable on this type of slate. But he's not going to be really chalky on FanDuel where I'm playing. So like the Orioles are kind of like outside of my list of stacks.
Actually, yeah, Keith, let's talk with the cheapies for a second. We'll rise up and get your thoughts as far as like the pitchers that we actually like. But like Irvin and Brubaker, those are guys. I mean, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, man, I can't wait to roster Cole, Irvin or JT Brubaker. But like, you just kind of have to do these things sometimes to make other stuff work. And, the bank on variance. Do you have a preference amongst those two? Do you have a third garbage cheapie you want to introduce to the conversation?
I do have a third I want to introduce. I like Blender. I'm trying to find a way to get off of Irvin, like just not a pitcher that's going to burn me. I'm fine with Brubaker. I think Milwaukee's a little bit overrated. Christian Yelich had the grand slam the other day, but he's way down from what he was at his peak. So I don't mind the Brubaker call, but I'm interested in Chris Archer. There's some Ks in that Kansas City lineup. The pitch count is the biggest concern. He only threw 63 pitches the first time out, made it through 4 innings, but he had 3 strikeouts and no walks. I think he can get up into that 75 to 80 range today. I'm not terribly scared of this Kansas City lineup. And they've been a team that historically doesn't strike out a ton. But if you look at the bottom of that lineup, there's plenty of strikeouts in there. And even Witt is hitting 3rd today. The guy's been striking out over 30% so far. Obviously a super talented prospect, but he's still working on figuring it out. So there's just more strikeouts in this Royals lineup than I think we're used to. And I like this matchup for Archer.
Pretty good weather there. Good ballpark to pitch in as far as suppressing homers too in Kansas City. Santana was a scratch for what it's worth. If you saw the lineup earlier today, that's since been adjusted. Mondesi strikes at a ton too. Do you want to see Taylor in there? Taylor, a ton of power, but strikes at a good bit too. Annoying to see Lopez top of the lineup because Lopez, he's not going to really strike out much. Merrifield, the same deal. Actually got us a good stick as well. But I mean, I might end up on some Archer begrudgingly. Again, you're not happy about it, but you'll do it, right? And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, if I felt better about the pitch count, I would have a lot more exposure, but it's baked into the price too. I just think he can pay that price tag off with 5 or 6 strikeouts and 80 pitches.
Let's see. I mean,
more just to be clear, more of a DraftKings play than a FanDuel play.
What is
the
end
definitely. Yeah.
What's the end FanDuel? Just like 7 or something?
7,300, and the pitch count like quality start upside. You can mention, like someone in the chat mentioned about Josh Fleming. Like, to me, anyone that's coming in as a PLR automatically gets X'd off my list because they can't possibly get the quality start because they didn't start. So like, is he viable on DraftKings? I guess, right at 6,100. But like on FanDuel, it's just a non-starter. And
he can get the win, though. He's got a better chance of getting the win.
Sure, but you get points for a quality start. DraftKings doesn't have a quality start, so I don't mind DraftKings. That's why I said on DraftKings, I don't mind because you don't have to worry about those points. On FanDuel, he could pitch 5 innings, 6 innings, and not get the quality start because he didn't start the first inning of the game.
Do you think you need the quality? I mean, I like the quality start.
That's what it's capture upside. We're trying to win GPPs here, Dean.
Well, I mean, you can go 5 and strike out 10 and get a win. That's fine.
I want my points.
I want them too. I'm just asking the question. Like, is there a scenario where like it's okay to not get the quality start? Like, I understand.
Yeah, if he strikes out 12, I don't mind 5 innings, 12 strikeouts. I don't care about that. But Josh Fleming ain't doing that.
No, probably not. Yeah, I saw he's probably coming in early. I imagine, second inning or something like that. I don't think Whistler's going to go terribly deep the opener today. Keith, I want to get your thoughts as far as the elite starting pitchers, right? Corbin Burnes, DK, we're looking at 51% ownership. But he should be, like, if you're looking at years past, right? Like 11K, maybe 11.5, maybe 12K, and he's 10.5 when you consider his skill set. Not that hard to make him work. He's got to be in your cash game lineups on DK. Musgrove seems too cheap. We're looking at 44% on Joe Musgrove because he's 8.6K. I want your thoughts on those two, and then we got to have the Robbie Ray conversation. But let's first have the Burnes and Musgrove conversation.
They're both great, very talented pitchers with excellent matchups. The only thing not to like is the ownership, but I don't know. For upside, they're the two guys that I'm looking at. Like, I'm not getting enough of a ownership discount on Ray to just try to fade one of those guys. I far prefer the matchup for Burnes and Musgrove. Musgrove is too cheap on DraftKings, where I'm primarily playing. So I will definitely be overweight on him. Burnes, I don't know if I'll be able to get over the field, but I'm going to at least be around the field, which is why I'm trying to do some different things with my bats, like talked about Boston and Minnesota as a couple of pivots off of the Phillies. But yeah, I think the chalk at pitching today is good chalk, and I'll have a ton of it.
I like to sort I look at the play IQ at some, and I also like to sort on Fangraphs, like every single pitcher that's pitching, on the slate, and you can kind of sort stuff. And like Burnes has the lowest Sierra amongst everybody pitching on the slate, 2.67, which is just awesome. He's got the highest K rate, which is 35%, which is awesome. Barrel percent, he's at the lowest barrel percent. It gets barrel 3.4% of the time, which is awesome. The hard hit rate, he's got the lowest one, unless you're counting Whistler, which I'm not counting Whistler, 31.8%. Like, look, variance happens, goofy things happen, but he's the clear best pitcher. And the matchup against Pittsburgh is awesome too, because the Pirates, they stink. You pull up the plate IQ, they strike out 24.4% collectively against righties. The only real contact hitters in this lineup are Reynolds and Newman. Thankfully, Newman buried in the lineup. So, like, if he gets Newman a third time around, that means things are going really well for Burnes. That's 7 innings, I suppose. Well, no, that's assuming no outs, obviously. But yeah, Newman's a big contact guy. He can't hit well, but he'll put the ball in play somewhere. But yeah, Burnes is awesome. What's left to say about Burnes, Blender?
Nothing. And by the way, no Trout in the Angels lineup.
Good. Okay, that's important to note. I was wondering why we were talking about a pre-show. Is Rendon back? I assume he's back.
Yeah, he's batting third. It's Ohtani, Ward, Rendon, Duffy, Mayfield, Suzuki, Adele, Marsh, Velasquez.
Good Lord, the Angels. They're wasting the two best baseball talents of the last 20 years. It's insane. Should not be allowed what they're doing. Oh, what a waste.
To talk about the high-end pitching, yeah. I think it's a much different conversation on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings. Okay, so on DraftKings, I think the 3 highest on pitchers are going to be Burnes, then Musgrove, then Ray. but you're gonna switch out the bottom two on FanDuel because Musgrove is 11,000, right? So you're gonna get Burns and then Ray and then Musgrove. We have Musgrove at around 9-10% ownership. So on FanDuel, I'm much more likely to pivot from Burns to Musgrove for a difference at 30% versus 10%, which probably shouldn't be that wide based on their projection difference of only like 4 points. And Robbie Ray will be more owned on FanDuel than he will be on DraftKings.
What do you do?
Because of the combinations that you can make? Because of guys like Cole Irvin, because you're playing two pitchers. The bat currently has Ray as the highest projected pitcher in raw points, even higher than Burns. But Ray, to me, is a much higher variance pitcher. And I'm not convinced, based on his first start, that he's the Robbie Ray of last season. He could be the Robbie Ray of the season before that.
Yeah, the walks were back for sure.
Right. So if he's that guy that could go out and strike out 13 or give up 13 runs, I don't want to play him at this ownership. I'm going to be under on Ray on FanDuel. Still have some because he has upside, but I'll be sprinkling in some Texas four-mans in there because this Texas lineup is not like last year's Texas lineup. You got Semien and Seager and Garver in there. You got a good lineup. And I don't mind the lefty-lefty matchups with Ray. He's a power pitcher. If he's giving up power, it doesn't matter what side of the plate he's on. Yes, he has more strikeout ability, but I don't play bats for is he going to get a single? It's like, no, I just need over the wall, hit the wall, whatever. And Texas is a low total. Texas is barely going to be owned, especially with Ray's ownership up there. I'm not saying Ray is a bad play, but it's, to me, compared to Musgrove and Burns, Musgrove versus Cincinnati and Burns versus Pittsburgh, the Texas lineup is better than both of those two teams, and Ray has a much wider range of outcomes that I'm more willing to eat Burns, eat Musgrove, and then go light on Ray and stack against him.
Yeah, Keith, what do we do with Ray? And we kind of talked about it. Like last year, I think he won the Cy Young, or he was in the running of the Cy Young. He had an incredible year. Best year of his career at age 29. And this is a guy we used to stack against. We used to pick on him. We used to love picking on him. And he's not that far removed from that guy. And so far this year, the velocity is down. He got paid. The velocity is down. The walks are up, which is always the problem with him. The Ks are down. It's small sample stuff. I don't know what to do with him. And I don't know if we can draw any sort of conclusion. Maybe he's just gonna be perfectly fine, and then just spring training mess with the lack of spring training and mess with people in different ways, and maybe he's still kind of working his way into shape. We don't know that. How do you handle it?
So I like Robbie Ray as a pitcher. He has always had strikeout ability, but the other two are so much better today, and I'm not getting much of an ownership discount. If he was going to be a third of the ownership of Burns and Musgrove, I would have interest in Robbie Ray. It's a more difficult matchup, but it's still a matchup that he can win. I did write up his K prop today. It came down to 6.5. It opened at 7.5 and then got bet down to 6.5. So I do like the over on that 6.5, but the walks are the biggest concern. I'm concerned how deep he's going to be able to go if he's back to that 10-11% walk rate guy. He's just not going to get 7 or 8 innings in 95 to 100 pitches if he's back up around that 10-11% walks.
He is projected to throw the most pitches today. As far as assuming things are going fairly well, the bat loves his pitch count. It's got him at 105 potentially. It's a big old number. Irvin, by the way, second for what it's worth at 102. So maybe he can just grind out 6 or 7 innings, not just and strike out 3 or 4. Just kind of get by that way. Musgrove 97, Birds 97. Anybody that's kind of strangely, I think Archer. Yeah, Archer we got projected, or I shouldn't say Carty has 80 pitches for Archer, which is acceptable, right? If it's 80 pitches, you'll take that, assuming they're good pitches, right, Keith?
Yeah, I would be happy with that. Yep.
John Gray has that blister, and I don't know if I need John Gray. And then John Gray now with the potential blister issues, or he came out of the game last time. I don't think I'm playing him. Long story short, I think my pitching pool is going to be pretty condensed. Does anybody have a John Gray take?
I'm not playing a guy coming off the IL for a blister. Those things pop up pretty easily again. So yeah, I wouldn't be doing it.
What about Eovaldi? Toronto's lineup, especially without Teoscar Hernandez, is kind of sort of something like the Angels, right? Where it just the Angels lineup starts out really good and then it falls off a table. Do you see he's betting cleanup for the Toronto today? It's Zach Collins. Now, granted, Matt Chapman is batting fifth, and then Alejandro Kirk, pretty good hitting catcher. Tapia, Espinal, it's not the worst, but it's not great. You're not afraid of those guys. Of course, Springer, Bichette, Vladdy, that's a tough 1, 2, 3 to get through. Eovaldi, one of the better pitchers of last season. You got to pay for it, but he's also a guy that can throw 6 or 7 theoretically. Blender, is Eovaldi in your pool?
Well, Eovaldi is a little overpriced on DraftKings, but that'll keep his ownership down. I think he's just as viable as a Valdez. I think Valdez and Eovaldi on DraftKings are a little too expensive. They're too close to Burns, and Eovaldi is Musgrove is better for $900 cheaper. So these are the type of pitchers you play with your Phillies lineups. These are the types of pitchers you play with your Colorado or Boston's, like some of the high Milwaukee, if you wanted to do that to get off of the pitcher chalk. But on FanDuel at 7,800, I mean, to me, he's underpriced. He should be closer to 9K on FanDuel. And I think you could play Ray, Burns, maybe not Musgrove. You could play and still get decent bats. So I'm not sure how many people are going to be going down to Eovaldi. And if I had to compare Eovaldi and Cole Irvin on FanDuel, the difference is $700. And Eovaldi has much more strikeout upside than Irvin does. That, yes, he has to face a better line. That the Orioles lineup, that the Toronto lineup is still better than the Orioles lineup, even without Teoscar in it. But I'm not that outside of first, the top of the order, the Blue Jays lineup. I mean, Eovaldi could get a bunch of strikeouts. So I'm not scared. People will look at, the matchup against Toronto at Fenway and then say, no, I can't. It's a hitter's ballpark. Toronto's good. And it's dude, it's 46 degrees in Boston, right?
Wind's blowing out, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't care that much about that. I mean, look at this bottom of the order. Tapia, Espinal. I mean, there's not that much power. And you got Collins, Chapman, and Kirk strike out a ton. Springer strikes out a ton. Vlad strikes. I mean, there's strikeouts here. And
it's not a great strikeout matchup, though. Less than 20% collectively.
But for the price, it's 7,800. There's a big difference. If Eovaldi's 10K, that's a different story. But at 7,800, can I get 6 innings, 6 strikeouts? Win, quality start? Give me 42 points or something? If unless Burns or Musgrove or all those guys put up 60s, now I could spend for more expensive bats and probably more expensive bats that aren't the Phillies. And I can get different in 2 different places. So I think 9,500 on DraftKings, you're doing it purely, you're paying up to be contrarian. But on FanDuel, if he's going to come in at sub 5% ownership, I think it's worth playing.
Question in the chat, Chris Ellis, is he viable? I assume that's a DK question where he's 4K. Keith, are you getting any Ellis in your pool against Oakland, who's, a lineup Oakland's overachieved so far this year, but they're not good, right? But is Chris Ellis good? Is he worth playing? And how long could he actually go?
Yeah, that is my concern. Is he actually stretched out?
I don't think he started this year, and I guess it's worth pulling up his minor league numbers. I've not dug into Ellis for what it's worth, but let's see if we have some starts in the minor leagues, what his pitch count may or may not have been. But yeah, somebody's asking for a trash lineup, a flat out punt. We got.
I just don't think it's necessary. I just don't think it's necessary. You got Archer, you got Irvin, you got Brubaker, even Fleming on DraftKings. It feels like, what are you gaining with the extra 2,000? I think, what are you gaining? I mean, so you could play all the $5,500 hitters. I just don't think the ceiling on Ellis is too low that you're conceding to just be able to, to have Boston plus Phillies type of lineup, 5-3, and everyone's expense. I just don't think it's worth it. Why do you have to go all the way down for what could possibly be a ceiling of 12 points?
He pitched 4 innings for the Norfolk Tides in AAA on April 13th for what it's worth. So, I mean, 4 innings and maybe 4 or 5 innings you can get out of him or something like that. I wouldn't imagine we go much further than that. But again, he's priced for that too. That's kind of where I'm at too, though. I don't think it's necessary. Keith, is that sort of your head as well?
It is where I'm at. There's enough value at bats. I'd rather punt a bat or two than try to punt at pitcher.
All right, let's talk about the hitting on the slate. Unless you have anything else, Keith, you want to share as far as pitchers? I think it's important. I think we may have skipped over that I kind of screwed up on, but I think we basically talked about everybody. It's like really worth pointing out on this slate.
Yeah, I think we covered it. Yep, I don't have anything else to add.
Open up your thoughts as far as hitters. Like, again, the one game is not like the rest. This Philadelphia-Colorado game, I know it flopped yesterday, right? Especially the Philadelphia side. 11.5 is the total in that game, which I think has gone up as the day has progressed. Philly's got a team total above 6, Colorado 5 and a hook. Besides that, I don't think we have any team. Do we have any team with a 5? I don't believe
Boston's at 5, I think.
Boston, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Boston just at 5, 4.4 for Toronto. And again, these are just, projections and what's the difference when you half a run, that kind of stuff. Texas lineup just came out, by the way. Want to see if that's pretty standard. Is it kind of what we expected?
Yeah, it's the expected. It's exactly the expected 9 that we have.
Yeah. If you're rostering Ray, you prefer as many lefties as possible. You're getting Seager, Semien, Seager, Garver, Garcia, Lowe, Solak, Ibanez, Culberson, and White. So yeah, how do you handle the discrepancy as far as Philadelphia? And like, give me the pivots away, Keith, if you're not on the Phillies in a particular lineup. Or how are you rostering Phillies and making those lineups unique enough where, if they do well, you can separate yourself from the field?
Yeah. So I think playing the bottom of the order Phillies is my favorite way to stack the Phillies today. You save a little bit of money by doing that. And then I can pay up for the big guys in Boston, I think is my preferred, differentiated build. Don't get me wrong, Castellanos and Harper are perfectly capable of winning in this matchup, but they need to do more at those price tags. So I'm banking on the stack scoring 7, 8, 9 runs here, and the bottom of the order doing just enough to where they meet value at those deflated price tags, and then I get the home runs and things like that from the higher price stack that I have in Boston.
And Blender, you're just like not playing Philadelphia a ton, if at all, right?
It's quite possible that I have no Philadelphia players in any of my lineups.
Would you use them as one-offs theoretically? Is that a route you would do?
Yeah. If I would, that the stack, it's one of those things where I'm betting that the stack doesn't get there, but one guy has ends up with a home run, a double, 3 RBIs, and it's like he's necessary, and especially if they're in non-outfield positions. So like if I were to play a one-off, I'm less likely, even though they project better, like the outfield, like Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, but it's like the guys like Segura and is Gregoriuson, like the guys that are in like the weird, scarcer positions where Segura puts up 30 points. You may need him because no other second baseman has more than 12. So I'm more in those spots, but there's enough options on this entire slate that I could leave the Phillies in, not play them in stacks, play them in 4-3-1 lineups as a one-off. But if my general approach is going to be, I want Coors to bust, there's plenty of other outfielders. I mean, there's outfielders galore on the entire slate that could easily get 30 plus points on FanDuel. That why even spread myself that thin? Because if some guy from the Phillies puts up 37, 40 points, it's also likely that there are other guys on the Phillies that also have 16, 20s, 24s. That, my one-off doesn't matter anymore because the stack did get there.
All right. I lost Blender. Am I still here? Am I still with you guys? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Your mic cut out on my end for some reason. That was just my bad. So, okay. We just lost audio for a second. We're still good to go.
People got tired. The Zoom got tired of hearing from me.
Yeah. Hey, what was it? What was the tweet yesterday? Your morning show. They're talking about. Oh God, why am I forgetting his name?
Someone was complaining that they didn't want to hear from James McCool.
Yeah,
and it's like he talks 10% of the time because I talk most of the time.
You have the Embiid usage. He's got the Tony Snell usage, and they're tired.
No, I got the James Harden usage.
Yeah, I'm combining teams or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So how are you how are you being different? Who are the lineups that you're kind of focus on, that you're loading up on? Because none on paper are spectacular, right, Blender? But it's baseball and weird things happen. And the more games that are going down, 11 on FanDuel, 11 on DK, 10 on FanDuel, the more likely one team scores 10, 11, 12, 13 runs, right?
Right.
So,
I think that to go through my list of like under-owned teams versus expectation that I have currently, and we don't have all the lineups out, so this may change a little bit. I have the Phillies as over-owned. I have the Rockies as about efficiently owned, so I may still have some Rockies in there. Same for Boston. Boston is iffy. I think they may be slightly over-owned, but not enough so that I want to just like X them out. I have Milwaukee as vastly over-owned today. I have Tampa against Steele as over-owned. I have Toronto even a little bit over-owned. Seattle and Oakland, even though they're towards the bottom, a little bit over-owned. The places that intrigue me the most on this slate. I'll start with Kansas City. And this is primarily, remember, this is FanDuel. So Kansas City, I know Archer is not going to be owned on FanDuel, but Archer, high variance pitcher, right? So if I'm going to attack pitchers, I'm going to attack high variance pitchers and not low variance ones. And maybe Archer, maybe he doesn't have his stuff. Maybe he's not back, right? And Kansas City is cheap enough on FanDuel that I don't mind as like a vomit stack. I mean, if I go through the pricing, I mean, yeah, Nicky Lopez batting second is not that great. But, I mean, Merrifield is under 3K. Bobby Witt is 2,800. Sal Perez is 33, right? You got Benintendi, Dozier, Mondesi has steal upside. I mean, I may not play like Cam Gallagher or anything on FanDuel, but I'm going by the fact maybe Archer doesn't have his stuff. He's walking five guys, leaving people on base. Royals have no problem double stealing, right? You get points for that. So the Royals are on my list. Another team similar to that is the Padres. I think the Padres are underpriced on FanDuel. Other than Manny Machado, everyone in their lineup is under 3K. They have a 4.5 implied run total, which, yeah, it's not the Coors game, but for their run total, Nola, you got Cronenworth, Cronenworth on FanDuel is eligible at 3 different positions. So, like, I love when that happens. You got Voit, you got Myers, maybe the bottom of the order, not so much. So I think especially on FanDuel, pairing Musgrove with a 4-man Padres stack, they would be correlated. If the stack goes off, most likely Musgrove gets the win, gets the quality start, and Musgrove is going to be much lower owned on FanDuel because he's overpriced on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. And then the interesting one that I may have the most of this. They're a bit overpriced for the matchup, but for their seal, that it's the team that has the team that has the highest ceiling in all of Major League Baseball is the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're facing Max Fried, who the Braves' best pitcher, but Max Fried isn't like he's going to strike out 12 guys type of pitcher, and the Dodgers lineup is like an all-star team. So on a slate where Philadelphia and Colorado and Boston and Milwaukee are all going to be like double-digit owned. Like, why not? Especially if I'm going to play like Eovaldi at 7,800 on FanDuel, why not jam in Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman and Muncy and Betts and like look at the names that I'm mentioning and people. I mean, we have the Dodgers stack as like a 3% owned stack, and I have him. The Bat has them as the 3rd highest ceiling projection on the entire slate. The problem is point per dollar wise, they don't rate out that well, but GPPs, I don't care about point per dollar. I care about that. Will they put up enough runs? And against Max Fried, he's very good with run prevention, but he gets knocked around for an inning or two. He comes out and then we get the Atlanta bullpen, and I don't mind the Atlanta bullpen. So even though the Dodgers have a lower total, 4.36 currently, their ownership shouldn't be 3% on like any 10-game slate because they're the damn Dodgers. So like that interests me. And even the Atlanta against Buehler on FanDuel, I may have a little bit because they're not priced the same like they are in DraftKings. And Atlanta's lineup, Olsen, Albies, Riley. Yeah, it's Buehler. Maybe I don't play them as a 4-man stack, but I have no problem sprinkling the Braves as one-offs. The only thing I just wish Buehler was more owned on FanDuel because you get extra leverage. So those are really like the stacks I'm looking at. And then obviously, like I said before, playing some Texas bats against Ray, but it's not going to be the type of thing in my 100 lineups where I'm like Xing out Robbie Ray. It'll be more like I'm playing like Ray in 10% of my lineups under the field, and maybe 5% of my lineups have Rangers four-mans, and maybe a sprinkling of one-offs in other places. Because Ray could still put up 50 points on FanDuel and give up a home run to one dude as a one-off. And, you know, Corey Seager, especially in a weird shortstop position. So, like, to me, that currently is my general approach on FanDuel for stacks and bats.
Blender, this is why you've earned the James Harden usage tag. that was like 7 consecutive shots. That was amazing.
Well, you got it all at once.
well, okay, great, but no, we're still here. This group is still here for like 25 more minutes. I mean, are you done? You have to go to the bench now? Are you gassed out, or you got to have some stamina? You got to pace yourself.
No, I'm like I could play 44 minutes, right? Take two 2-minute breaks, right, in between the quarters or whatever.
Somebody just asked, I saw you tweeted out about the show being on, if people were not aware, and somebody, of course, do you always get this? Somebody responded, are you going to say play anyone?
I get that all day. People, why should I bother? Just play whoever you want.
But they don't understand the context to it. You can explain the context to them. It might take 12 minutes or so, and they still might not understand or not want to understand, but yeah, context.
Yeah, but Dean, it's all about marketing. See, if I didn't come up with phrases like that, people will be like, I don't know who Jordan Cooper is. I don't know this Blender HD guy. It's the play whatever you want guy. Oh, it's that guy.
We got to give Keith a gimmick. I know Roth tried to give him the ice thing. Keith, what's your gimmick? We need you to get some numbers out there. You know, did you have anything you're working on? Do you want to, Blender? I know you have a course on just sort of DFS. Are you teaching a course on how to market yourself as well?
Well, Keith is failing then.
Oh, no. I don't think he's trying. I don't think he just doesn't care.
Blender and I will have to get together offline, and he can give me a few pointers on.
We got to do some branding.
There you go.
Like you do ice. It's like eyes. The googly eyes, like the emoji eyes. Like that would be better as kind of more of a gimmick than a white guy calling themselves ice.
For the record, I've never called myself ice.
Yeah, he didn't give it to himself, I don't think. You got to learn the backstory. I think Roth gave it to him or something like that, and it just sort of stuck. And then that's what Roth likes to call him. He thinks he has a good time with it.
Basically, Keith was too boring for Roth, so he asked me if I had anything from back in the day. I told, well, when I was like playing high school sports and things, it was always ice. But that's how it came about. It was a crunch time thing for sure.
Maybe Keith is the smartest one of all of us because he just doesn't really mess with like all the Twitter nonsense, and it's just you just don't get involved, as far as I can tell, right?
I'm always lurking, like following what's going on, but yeah, I'm never the one instigating or getting in the middle of an argument or anything like that. No, I keep to myself for the most part.
That's probably the highest value move. Just sort of meander and lurk, and you just don't deal with anything. But all right, Keith, there was a lot to unpack as far as Blender had to say. But it is worth noting whether you're talking about the Dodgers and just Max Fried doesn't give up homers. That's kind of my problem with him. Doesn't give up fly balls, 27% fly balls, home runs at 0.76 per 9. Yes, I know the Dodgers have a slew of good hitters, all-star team, yada, yada. But like out of the 162, this one is less likely than most for the Dodgers to do their thing. Variance, baseball, of course. But that's why I don't love the Dodgers today. But of course, you could always play them. Keith, there's, Blender threw out a lot of stuff. And whatever sort of you want to latch onto, by all means, something you want to agree with, something you want to double down on, something you want to take umbrage with. And I wasn't really taking umbrage. I just thought it was worth pointing out that the Dodgers are always the Dodgers, but, Fried, not a dominant pitcher, just rarely gives up homers. What do you have here as far as your thoughts away from the Phillies?
Well, I do like the Dodgers. I think paying up for anyone but Phillies is going to be very, very different on this slate. So I prefer to do it with Boston, but I will have a couple of Dodger stacks in there as well. And then I'll get my pieces of Coors from the cheaper end of that spectrum. Fried doesn't give up a ton of homers, but he could give up a solo. And then I'm not scared of that Atlanta bullpen. So I do agree with Blender's points on the Dodgers. I'm in on that. They're the most talented offense in baseball. Probably need to play at least one stack of them every single day. The other team that he didn't talk much about that I really like today is Minnesota. I'm not scared of Carlos Hernandez. They are very cheap on DraftKings. So if I am paying up for Phillies, I like pairing them with Minnesota as kind of the value part of that. If I'm trying to completely fade Coors and go to a Boston or a Dodgers team, I like Minnesota as like a secondary stack as well. Just avoid Arise in that. If you're doing a 5-man stack, I don't mind it, but that's a big ownership number on Arise. He doesn't have a massive ceiling. He's not a guy that's going to kill me if I don't have him. So I just prefer to start it down. But even Correa is 4,300. That's just underpriced for this matchup against Carlos Hernandez. The Braves are the other team. It's a kind of a similar thought. They're cheap too. I slightly prefer Minnesota to Atlanta just because of the better pitching matchup.
Yeah, and the reason why we're poo-pooing Arise, especially as like a solo piece, is he doesn't strike out. He's going to put the ball in play. 7% strikeouts against righties, since 2021. But the ISO, just the complete lack of power in his bat, 0.093. The ISO to power is just brutal. Like he can get a triple in the gap, and if he comes up with bases loaded, of course, like that's better than a solo homer, but it's hard to predict that very, very specific example. But
yeah, I mean, I'd much rather play Urshela, who has a much higher chance of hitting one out, and he's 2,100. Sure, he's further down the lineup, but I think there's more upside there with Urshela.
How do you feel about looking at no Altuve today? Altuve is dealing with a hammy. I'm not sure how serious it is. I think he had an MRI today, but now Jeremy Pena draws the one spot for Houston, and he's a bit of a prospect. He's the heir apparent to Correa. Altuve crowned him and said that this guy's going to be a future stud, essentially, in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. And he's cheap. He's not priced for a guy, batting leadoff for one of the better offenses in baseball. How do you feel about Jeremy Pena, Keith?
Yeah, I love that. I probably need to refresh. I've only got a 4% number on him. I assume that's going to go up now that he's in the leadoff spot. But yeah, I love him as a hitter. Good prospect. I like that one. Yeah,
I'm just thinking in terms of like cash game stuff. And I think shortstop is one of the weaker positions. Is that fair? When you consider dollar for dollar and what you're spending, obviously you want some Turner. Turner's good, Bichette's fine. Bogarts is fine. Left on left in Coors, but Gregorius is fine. I think Adames is pretty cheap on Fanduel, but DK is 4.7K. Just kind of jumping around as far as positions. Hey, Blender, let's put Harden back in. So I talked about this the other day, and I thought it was an interesting conversation. And I might have butchered what you're saying. Again, I kind of paraphrase it, but I know I've heard you talk about the prospect or the thought of not wanting to lock in 3 outfielders from one team. We talked about it yesterday because of Philadelphia. Like, it was very clear, like the 3 best outfielders, projection wise, or 3 of them were. But like, it also boxes you out of, any other outfielder, and some other outfielder, I don't know his name, but somebody is going to, hit 2 homers or hit a home run and go 4 for 5 with 5 RBIs. And now you don't get that guy. You don't have access to that guy. So speak on that thought process. And maybe I misunderstood. Does it depend if it's like a 5-game slate or a 15-game slate? I would assume.
It's an opportunity cost thing. First off, Dodgers lineup is out. It's a little bit weaker. Barnes is in instead of Smith, and Alberto's in instead of Bellinger. So the upside of the Dodgers lineup goes down a bit. I mean, still I would say the top half is pretty good. But yeah, so the Dodgers, that ceiling is going to come down a little bit. But as far as the 3 outfielders, this is only for DraftKings. FanDuel has a utility slot, so this doesn't apply because you could play 4 outfielders. You could play 2 first basemen. You could play 2 second basemen. It comes down to the fact that it's an opportunity cost question. What is the strongest position from a ceiling perspective in MLB DFS? Outfield. Second would be first base, typically. Right, where all the power is, the power bats. Now, in DraftKings, if 2 players are first base eligible, no one can play 2 of them. Right? If Freeman hits a home run and Olsen hits a home run, no one can have both those home runs in their lineup. You could check if they're the first, no one's going to have 28 points in their lineup with those solo home runs because it's impossible. FanDuel, it's possible. Okay, so the opportunity cost on outfield, because you could play 3 of them, means that you can make a lot more combinations of outfielders compared to when you stack them. You're filling up all 3 outfield spots with guys from the same team. So you're and now if all those 3 outfielders, Schwarber, Castellanos, and Harper all have home runs or whatever, yeah, you're great. But if like the stack could come through and one of those guys has 3 points, and it's like someone may win with a 4-3-1 lineup with the one-off whatever guy that's owned enough that You have Joe Adele or Mookie Betts or whoever the 2 home run guy is. Like that would be better off, and you're locking yourself out of those types of combinations. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do one or the other. I have no mathematical evidence that the ceiling is that dramatically affected by stacking with 3 outfielders on DraftKings, but intuitively, it does make more sense than not. Would I sacrifice 4 points of projection to avoid that? No. But when it comes to like a 50-50, a 1 point plus or minus type of thing, I'd much rather have one-offs, power outfielders than roster, the 8th hitter. Like we take some of these teams, like we take the Phillies, for example, right? We take a look at the Phillies. Let me go down to would you rather right? That's exactly the point I'm saying. Would you rather have Vierling in your lineup, in a 5-man Philly stack, or just not play to get Hoskins or Segura into a middle infield spot, and then be able to you pay down somewhere. And now you have 4,200 for an outfielder, and it's like you can find plenty of 4,200 range outfielders that have power potential, 2 home run power potential, and now you're able to fit as you could play that lineup 5 different ways with 5 different guys and give yourself a chance. But putting in Vierling doesn't, putting in Vierling plus Harper plus Castellanos, it's like now you better make sure the Phillies put up 14 runs and Vierling gets even 12 points or something. Because take a look at yesterday's slate. It was kind of like, did you not have Alvarez in your lineup? Like the Astro stack did not get there. You pretty much just needed Alvarez. But if you were playing Phillies plus 5-3 or something and stacking all 3 Phillies outfielders, dude, you can't play Alvarez in your lineup. So it's like I'm much more likely on DraftKings. FanDuel utility position changes everything. Because now feel free to play 3 outfielders in the same team. You still have a utility spot to play another outfielder from some other team. So that's my theory. Whether or not it's worth doing, like setting in lineup HQ to like never do this, I'm not sure. Especially the smaller the slate gets, the opportunity cost goes down because there's less outfielders to choose from.
Shout out to Tuttle, by the way. Expert survey, which was free yesterday for baseball. His expert survey bold call was Yordan Alvarez hits 2 homers. And she said Tucker and Alvarez combined for 3, so he almost got there. But it was out there as far as
you could have mentioned any other player in the majors, and that would have been the same.
Correct. there are 2
Alvarez plus any other batter that didn't hit a home run on yesterday's slate almost got there at 3 total.
But he paired the 2 Astros together. Yeah, fair enough. Two extreme hitting umpires for what it's worth. One in Coors. So Coors has an extreme hitters umpire, and the other one is in Kansas City today. For what it's worth. Keith, some questions here in chat. I think this is a good one. And if you guys are on YouTube, do hit that like button, do subscribe. We appreciate all that good stuff. Again, we are free all the way up into the bell. We're stepping aside about 20 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less, making a way for Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. We'll let you know what's going down weather-wise. You got Squirrelpatrol, who's won multiple live finals and been to a pile of them. And then DerekCarty, CEO of the Bat, CEO of the Blitz. He'll let you know what's going on as well from a cash game perspective, or just kind of give you the lay of land of the entire slate. Do stick around for that. But if you have any questions you want to fire off, whatever you want to talk about for the next 10 minutes plus, we're happy to do that. Put those questions in the YouTube chat or in the Rotogrinders Discord. RG, not RG. Why am I shorting it? Rotogrinders.com/Discord, the live stream chat channel. That's where producer Steve, producer Devin, they're lurking. They'll put those questions. Question for you, Keith. You dabble in the single entry stuff, right?
I do. Yep.
Okay. So question is it best to stack, or in this, there's obviously context and it matters, like dependent. Is it best to stack or just build cash lineups and be different in some spots? Like for FanDuel, if you're making a FanDuel single entry contest, how do you go about doing that?
I am a big proponent of stacking. I just think it is easier to get the right team than it is to get 4 different hitters throughout the entire slate, especially on a big slate like this. So even in single entry, I am almost always full stacking.
I would also say stacking is more encouraged on FanDuel. It's just the way the scoring system works. Correlation is more rewarded. I would just say I'm more likely to go 3-3-2, like that kind of thing, or 4-2-2. I don't necessarily have to go 4-4, and everything is it's all slate dependent, right? It's all dependent upon, what you're looking at. But yeah, I mean, as a general rule, 4-4, and it's a pretty clean route, and you're swinging for first on that. So feel free to fire up some more questions. So let's put a stack game. I'm not sure if you've missed anything. The old stack game, I'm going to throw out a team. You guys put a number on it. 5, you love it. It's your favorite stack of the day. That's it. 1, you hate it. It's not yours. And feel free to add your context. Everything is baked in as far as ownership, as far as if you want to be underweight. We all know that you guys understand that Philadelphia is the quote unquote best offense today, but how are you handling that is sort of like what we want from the number. So let's start with that. Philadelphia blender, I guess you're not going to be very high in Philly.
Remember, this is all for FanDuel because that's where I'm playing. I consider Philly 1.5, maybe 2. Not a 1. Like I'm personally treating it like a 1, but it's a slate where like mixing in one-offs and stuff like that. I think it's fine. So I'd rank it compared to ownership at around 1.5.
Yeah, Keith.
I'll go about 3. I'm going to differentiate my stack a little bit, but I think they're in a great spot. Obviously, just the obvious guys are a little bit overowned, so I'm not going to try to get over the field on them, but I will try to get overweight the field on some of the lower owned pieces of the stack.
If you're playing cash, theoretically, Keith, like who are the Philadelphia bats you want? I think I want Hoskins. I mean, Freeland's got a pretty dramatic split for what it's worth. I'm not saying you can't play Harper, you can't play Schwarber, but I think it flips today where like Hoskins becomes a really solid play. And if you're looking at, I was diving into some of the exit velocity, and he's been mashing baseballs this year. I'm not even sure what his output is, like his actual like homers and all that, but baseballs have been crushed off the bat of Rhys Hoskins. He's locked in if that's kind of a thing you're into. And Castellanos, of course, Realmuto is fun as well if you can get the money for it. Would you agree like the righty are probably, again, I'm not saying you can't play Harper and cash, but I think I'm looking for Castellanos first. Is that wrong?
No, I agree with you. I would go Hoskins and Castellanos as my 2 primary that I have to get in. Don't love to pay up for catcher, so Realmuto would not be a priority. I do like Segura batting at the top of the lineup if you can afford that.
All right. I pulled up our expert rankings. I'm just going to kind of work. Let's see. Philadelphia across the board is the number 1 ranked stack. We have Milwaukee second. Blender, speaking of Milwaukee, because you I think on FanDuel, they're still pretty cheap, right? And they're going to be, I think you said they're going to be overowned, right?
Yeah. On FanDuel, Christian Yelich is 2,900, and we have him projected as like 25+% owned. They are cheap, right? They're all under 3K. On FanDuel, and they have a run total. I just think for their ceiling that they're overowned. I just like do I want to play Yelich as a one-off? Probably not. It's going to be one of the more popular one-offs. And then once you piece everything else together, it's like I have them as a total ownership around 12% on FanDuel. And I think their efficient ownership is more like 7-ish. So like, yeah, that from a point per dollar perspective, mean projection wise, they're good, but GPPs aren't about mean projections. And I think they'll be over-owned based on that mean. So I ranked the Milwaukee, to me, as a 1. I would rank Milwaukee the last, because at least the Phillies, like, dude, the Phillies could put up 15 runs. So like in Coors Field against Freeland. So I'd be almost more likely to play a 4-man Philly stack and get different elsewhere than play an over-owned Milwaukee stack.
Keith, Milwaukee?
Not one of my favorites today. DraftKings is a little bit different conversation too, because they are more expensive. I don't like the upside today. Brubaker is not someone to be afraid of, but I don't think he's a terrible pitcher. I'd have him at like a 2.
Some questions rolling in. Hey guys, I'm a Reds fan. Yes, I know the Reds suck. Votto and Moose both have good numbers against Musgrove. That sounds like BVP talk. I don't know what it is, but Votto has been terrible so far this year. His exit velocity stuff is atrocious.
I know I had him in my best lineup yesterday with 0 points. I know very much.
And we know he's going to change his swing, of late. I don't know what the BVP is, but I imagine none of you guys really. I'm curious what it is. Does anybody care about Votto and Moose or like Votto?
No, the more you even research into this, the more you're perpetuating bad behavior.
Well, I'm just look. You've never perpetuated bad behavior. You've never just now you're
socially, sure, but not mathematically. No.
It's like retweeting like a terrible Skip Bayless tweet, and it's like, oh, this guy is a dope. Look at this moron who has 4 billion followers. It's like, now you're just part of the problem, because how do you dunk on somebody, Blender? You tell me this. Is this
you don't dunk at all? What's there to dunk on?
How do I dunk on a terrible take without bringing more like eyeballs to a terrible take and all of a sudden elevating that person?
You just ignore it.
Terrible take.
Just ignore it.
But then now the world doesn't know that I know that take's terrible.
Yeah, but all the good people know that it is, and that's all that matters.
I don't know how to handle that. It's important stuff. So they're asking about a Reds 3-man stack. Keith, are you into that today?
Who was it? Reds?
Yeah, like part of the conversation as far as Votto and Moose versus Musgrove, talking about a Cincinnati 3-man stack. And it's weird because like the answer could always be yes, like after the results are in. But like right now, I'm not in on it.
I'm not either. They are really cheap, but I have Minnesota who's really cheap that I prefer, and I think I would go Atlanta before I went Cincinnati too.
They're more just to add. There's more. The Cincinnati is more viable on DraftKings, only because Musgrove is going to be more owned on DraftKings. So if you want to play the stack against a owned pitcher game, there's plenty of relative value there to take advantage of. But there's also a lot more options for bats anyway, that you don't need to do that. On FanDuel, it's not FanDuel. I think Musgrove is underowned for $11K because he's overpriced. Then why the hell am I playing Cincinnati when Musgrove isn't going to give me as much leverage as he would on DraftKings?
DK specific question, Keith. This is you. They're asking about Yohan Adon as a potential pitching option. This is the back half of the doubleheader. Just trying to see if there's anything funky in that Arizona lineup. It looks fairly standard, right? Barsho's playing too. I don't know if Marte played the first game, but you got Marte in there. We don't know much about Adon, but like he's had some issues with control. I don't know how deep he's expected to go. I have not really considered him. I don't think he's not in my pool. Adon, is he in your pool?
He's not. I prefer Archer right there in that same range, a little bit cheaper. I don't know. Arizona doesn't offer a ton of strikeout upside, and Adon is not a huge strikeout pitcher anyway. So I'd rather take a shot on Archer.
Somebody's asking about Kikuchi for Seattle. No, wait, Kikuchi's on God, is he still in?
He's on Toronto.
Toronto. Okay, yeah. Okay, it took me a second. I don't know why I couldn't get there. I knew he was in Fenway, and I'm like, and he was on Seattle, right? I think so.
Yep.
Okay, that's what's tripping me up. So I have not considered Kikuchi, and I'm more on the Boston bats as is. Does anybody have any interest in Kikuchi? It's a no-no for me.
Boston's my favorite offense of the day, so nope.
Yeah, I mean, they're too contact heavy. I understand, like, it's not the greatest hitting conditions as far as the weather, as far as the temperature. I guess the wind's blowing out, but Blender, it's a no-go for you as far as Kikuchi?
Yeah, he will not be in my player. Well, no.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I got a 2v2 on DK, so you handle this one, Keith. A pitcher and a hitter. So we got Musgrove and Real Muto versus Valdez and Nola. I mean, the first one's clearly better, right?
Yeah, it's impossible to answer without the context of the lineup, though, because if you need differentiation, I could see going to the second one. But yeah, it's just raw points. It's the first one. Yeah, so it is always weird trying to answer these questions because, and like this guy on this team or this guy on that team, but what is the rest? Blender, this is where you come in and say, well, what does the rest of your lineup looks like? You should submit 8v8s, and then maybe Blender would be happy to answer the question. Is that true?
Well, no, but even that may not. I need to know what contest it's in, right? I need to know that also.
How long? I mean, you only have so many characters to work with, I think, before you have to hit send.
Maybe you should just learn the fundamentals of playing DFS, the game theory of DFS.com.
Where would I find that? Oh, wait, okay. There it is.
There you go. Maybe, and then you figure out that dude, and a lot of times, especially in MLB DFS, you could probably create 20,000 lineups that you could show me today. And I go, okay, that looks pretty, that's good for that. For large field contests, especially, show me 20,000 different lineups. And I go, okay, that's pretty good. That's good. That's good. You go, but they have all different players and all that. Yeah, but they have, you didn't play this guy there, but you played him on there in this type of lineup. And then it's just like, at that point, like just close your eyes, variance happens. And then hopefully by the end of the season, you bink 1 or 2 times.
And that's what you'll lose, and you're happy losing. What 90% of the time?
I'm not happy losing. I mean, no one's happy losing.
Assuming you're happy, assuming that you're going to bank on, you can go 1 for 20 and still be well ahead. Is the point of it.
Yeah, and that most seasons I do go 1. I know most of the time I'm losing 90% plus of slates, and then still end up 5-figure plus ahead, 6 figures ahead at the end of the season because when I win, I typically win a lot.
Yeah, I don't take as big as swings as you do, and maybe that's one thing I've always been a little bit. Well, I know you've been called a nit on Twitter. I'm probably more of a nit than you are.
I'm a nit when it comes to the bankroll, not with the style of play.
Yeah, I'm that too, and I've been that for too long probably. But how about yourself, Keith? Are you somebody that like you're are you taking as big as swings as Blender, or are you where would you put yourself as far as your win? Like, when you win, do you really win, or do you have like just kind of a slowly creep up as far as that bankroll?
So I definitely try to differentiate. I definitely have a different style of doing it than Blender too. Like he usually tries to find a spot that nobody's on, where I'm trying to make pivots like within the popular spot of the day, which I think today is a perfect example of that. He's looking for like a completely different stack, where I'm just looking to play different people in the Philly order.
Producer Steve is on Twitter right now complaining about the Mets umpire, which is amazing. Shout out to Steve, who's multitasking. He's tilting his Mets and he's producing the show. The crunch time guys should be coming in momentarily. What's the score in the Mets game? Oh, it's 9-9, bottom of the ninth, and a Met just struck out looking. So that's what happened. Apparently it was a ball. I don't know, but Steve's fired up, which I can appreciate. They're going extra innings. Was that game even on like a DFS slate, or maybe it was like a showdown or something?
I don't think it was. Do you know what happened to Alex Cobb? He got pulled with 60 pitches.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if it was, did he get hurt? All right.
Well, he got hurt.
That's what I was afraid of. Yeah.
Did Miguel pitch well? Yeah, Miguel. Well, no. Yeah, I guess not. I kind of liked him a little bit yesterday. He got rained out, threw things off for him, I suppose. We do have, hey, Steve. Well, Steve, can the people hear you, or no? Only we can hear you, because I want to hear you rant. Oh, that's unfortunate. I want to hear you rant about the Mets for a second, because we have time. A few more questions as they're kind of working their way in. You talked about the Twins, right, Keith? Can you isolate your favorite Twins? Which Twins would you play? In that game, just in general, as far as Minnesota versus Kansas City, your favorite bats?
My favorite is Carlos Correa. I also like Kepler. I like Urshela. I like Polanco. I'm going to full stack the Twins and play 3 Phillies with them. I think they can put up a pretty big number here. There's some upside and they're really, really cheap.
2 of the crunch time guys coming in momentarily. It officially starts at 6:30. So we have like a bit of a crosstalk, bit of a crossover, and we're sort of like figuring out what sort of nonsense we're just talking, maybe like having a little fun conversation for 5 minutes. It's kind of a work in progress. Hey, I tweeted this out earlier today. I'm curious if you have a thought in this, Blender. You probably do. And Keith, get one on layaway.
I always have an opinion, even if I don't mean it.
Yeah. That's why I'm going to first. I figured you'd have a good answer. And I know you have you'll know it when you hear the question. Random song. Is there a random song that for whatever reason is most frequently playing in your head for no particular, what's the song always playing in Blender's head?
It changes. It changes on a daily basis. A lot of times, this may sound like I'm mentally unstable. A lot of times it's little songs that I make up myself. Okay. Well, I'll just make up random.
Singer, right? You used to sing in a punk band years ago.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not really writing songs. I'm watching TV and it's a weird name in a commercial or something, like a medication thing, and then I just like go and I make say like whatever type of little ditty run, like something that would amuse a 3-year-old.
Sure.
Right. And then I just make a little. It's only like maybe 2 or 3 lines. And it's just like weird words or whatever. And then like for the rest of the day, I'm like, or whatever the hell it is. And typically I'm a good enough songwriter when it comes to those little ditties that it ends up getting stuck in my wife's head also.
Yeah. But when you used to write, I don't know, when you sang for a punk band, did you write the songs? And were they about like sticking it to the man? What were they about?
Well, I mean, I wrote the lyrics and I wrote I mean, it's hardcore. So there's barely any notes when it comes to singing. Most of my lyrics were socio-political about youth freedom, right?
Oh.
Very like positive hardcore, like very Ray Capo. If you know, like very like
Ray Capo, right?
Yeah, right. Sure Fugazi, very Minor Threat inspired.
Go ahead, Blender. Continue.
So it's more like Youth Crew, 7 Seconds, Bad Religion, type of like that's those style of lyrics.
Is this available on Spotify? Can I find your
Yes. Yeah. It unbelievably, it always blows my mind that the 2003 album that my band released on an actual label that only sold about maybe 3,000 copies You could go on YouTube Music, you could go on Spotify, you could go on Apple Music, and you
What's
type
the
in
name?
Friendly Fire Initiative, and that's the album, and I'm the singer. And anytime you put a string, I probably am owed like 84 cents or something over the past 19 years that I haven't gotten, but
You get a check, yeah. Does Spotify send you a check every 3 months or something like that, or it doesn't work like that? I don't know how that works.
I mean, the publisher, I mean, I'm assuming, and the label is out of business also, so I don't even know where the hell that money would possibly go.
Bringing in chief mineralogist Kevin Roth, Squirrelpatrol. You guys know Squirrel from winning multiple live finals, being at a pile of them. DerekCarty, CEO of the Bats. Roth, yesterday we learned that this important, very important crossover, crosstalk. We start usually a 6:30, I believe, on the East Coast as far as the crunch time. So we got a few minutes to dabble. We learned yesterday that Stevie does not care for kittens or puppies. Today we're learning about Blender's back history as a singer in a punk band. Are you going to Google now? Are you excited? You want to check out Friendly Fire on the old Spotify?
Yeah, I'm going to listen to that. But I mean, what an upgrade. We went from one of our co-hosts who doesn't like kittens or puppies to someone who was in a band. Like this is getting much better. Thank God. We couldn't get much lower than that, Stevie. So we're doing better, Dean.
Our crosstalk conversation, I was tweeting it out earlier today. I got a lot of responses. Maybe you have an answer off the dome, or if anybody else, feel free to chime in. Is there a random song that just like frequently plays in your head for no particular reason? Like it just always is there or always lurking?
Yes. Seven Nation Army from, is it the White Stripes?
White Stripes, yeah.
That's like the theme song to my life. I just go around humming it awkwardly and randomly, and I don't know why. So I don't know. I have no idea why, but that song gets stuck in my head for months at a time, Dean.
That sounds like a bass chord, but that's actually a guitar. That's him that's him making the noise on a guitar. It's not a bass guitar.
Right, because the bass, it goes like, there is a distinct bass chord in that song as well that's much simpler than that. But yes. Anyways, I don't know why. That song's stuck in my head all day, every day.
It's a good answer. Keith, did you have one by chance?
I do not know. I'm much more likely to be listening to sports banter than I am a song typically. Like I enjoy concerts and things like that, but no, nothing is usually playing in my head.
Carty of the Bat, you have to have a good answer for this.
Sorry.
No, there was no way Carty had one.
Carty, do you like music? Do you know you're aware of music? Yes.
Oh, I'm aware of music. Songs cycle in and out, but it's not like I have one that's like always there. It's like always a different song.
Who's like you have like a favorite band or a favorite artist?
I'm into everything. Not
I
everything.
picture classical. I picture you were listening to a lot of classical for some reason.
A lot of like classic rock, a lot of like kind of modern punk type stuff. Like 2000s, like pop punk is really good. Modern country is good.
Good Charlotte, like Blink-182.
Yeah,
What I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely like those kinds of bands I was into for a while.
Blender is judging you. Blender, tell him how wrong he is.
Wait until you hear Blender's new album. Then
I'm
you're gonna have a
excited to
song
look up
stuck
this
in your head.
album. Like this has got to be good.
Squirrel, save this bit. What do you have? What do you have for us?
Your relationship to music changes once you have kids because you're constantly hearing like toddler songs and like it's animated stuff. So it's all like Encanto and stuff like that.
What is the most intolerable like kid song you've been like forced to hear, basically forced to be around?
Ooh, there's some like bad Daniel Tiger stuff where they're doing stuff with like syllables, like stringing out like words into like 6 syllables to like make it neat. Like it's not good.
Is there one that's actually grown on you, like you secretly like?
No,
not a one.
No. Like the Disney stuff is pretty good. Like Encanto is, it's like a good movie. Like the 7th time you watch it, you're like, this is not so bad.
Oh man.
Crunch time officially starting. We're going to step aside and get out of here. On behalf of Blender, on behalf of Keith, I was Dean. We're going to get this right today. The Wayne's World official, and I'm going to disappear right away. Take it over, Roth. It's crunch time. Enjoy.
He's still there. He still can't figure out how to. All right, there we go. That's better. Hey, welcome to Crunch Time, aka the Jalen Brunson Appreciation Show, sponsored by Fanduel. Squirrel, before I get into this official read, can we just give love to my boy who I've been praising all freaking season long?
Yeah, I mean he was great, but like I think he's a free agent, right? Like you guys got to re-sign him.
Yeah, I don't care. I want him to go make money somewhere. Ever since I watched him play basketball, I thought this kid is a freaking star. He is not just a backup to Luka. He's a dude who can drop 41 points and 0 turnovers in a clutch game and dominate. And that's what he is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a good show. We'll see how the rest of the playoffs go.
God, it was so good. It was like, I felt everything that I've been screaming about all year, just watched it come to fruition. It was freaking amazing. But hey, this show is not about the basketball. It is actually about a little baseball. So if you haven't checked out the FanDuel 150K Tuesday MLB squeeze, it's 30K to first. It's $5 to enter. That's a pretty good little ratio. You can also sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. New users get a risk-free bet up to $1K. And with FanDuel Sportsbook, users can take advantage of that because they get their bonus after the first-time bet. So other ones, you got to like play through multiple times. That's not how it goes with FanDuel. Terms and conditions apply. Also, look, this is a free show thanks to FanDuel. And you're thinking, all right, we're going to win some money on some MLB, might dabble in some NBA. We also have an NHL slate summary that is free. We got a 10-game slate for NHL. It's free tonight. So check it out on the NHL page on Rotogrinders, and all your favorite RG experts have different hockey analysis ongoing. I do as well. Play the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're going to score 7 goals. It's what they do. So lock that in and then follow us for a little baseball. Guys, Carty, you feeling good about this baseball slate here, man?
Yeah. The bat's kind of on some stuff, especially with pitching that I guess is going to be a little contrarian. So yeah, it should be a fun one.
I do want to give the bat a little bit of credit. I saw a lot of people giving love to the bat over the last few days, people taking down tournaments. And usually it goes like this. I've never really played baseball, but just signed up for the bat first few weeks. And I just took down a tournament. And I'm like, I could do that. Why don't I do that?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of like, oh yeah, the bat paid for itself in the first 3 days I used it, like tweets and stuff lately, which is always really fun.
Yeah, it seems it seems like it's going really well. I know everybody loves it, everybody respects it, but it's cool to see that love and feedback as well. So we're excited to hear what the bat, aka your mind and your projection system, is coming up with here today. You want to just kind of dive into the slate in general for us, Carty, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so we have it's a pretty big slate tonight. We've had like the 2 double headers going on today. I think we get the second game of Arizona, Washington on this slate. And we have 9-inning double headers this year. So those guys aren't totally useless the way they have been the last couple of years, which is fun. But yeah, we have a lot of good pitching. I feel like we haven't had like a slate almost all year where pitchers actually project well. It's usually just like, well, this guy projects less bad than this guy. We have lots of pitchers actually projecting well tonight. Part of that is because the run environment has just cratered, and because pitchers are getting stretched out now. Like a lot of guys are going their third time through the rotation. Guys are actually getting up to normal pitch counts. We're probably going to see several guys approach or go over 100 pitches today, which has not been the norm, for most of this season so far.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned good pitchers. I was looking at the over-unders in some of these games, and I just assumed that we were still doing 7-inning double headers. You look at I think Washington and New York had the double headers, and their over-unders are like 7.5.
Well, yeah. So
6.5. One of them was like 6.5.
Yeah, so something's going on this year, whether it's with the ball. There's a chance it has to do with these humidors, but I can't figure out scientifically why that would make sense. But for whatever reason, home runs have just fallen off like a ridiculous amount. Yes, Kevin.
It's been crazy cold. It's been crazy cold through the Midwest and the Northeast for the first 2 weeks of the season.
Even once you account for the cold, home runs are still way, way down. Because I like weather too. And I thought, well, okay, it's April. It's going to be cold. Of course, home runs are going to be low, but no, once you account for that, it's still way, way down. Probably something to do with the baseball or something that we have no idea about right now. But yeah, runs are down, home runs are down. So that's why the totals are all going to look low, and pitcher projections are going to be higher.
Okay, well then let's talk about the pitcher projections. I want to go to Squirrel because he's been patiently waiting forever, but Carty, you're kind of our cash guy, so I think it makes more sense to start with you, and then Squirrel will get to you in just a second.
I mean, the cash combo, I guess. So like the most popular pitcher, I think, on both sites is going to be Corbin Burns. And Corbin Burns is totally fine. Like, he's great. He's awesome. He's like probably the second or third best pitcher in baseball. He's in a good matchup against the Pirates. I have nothing bad to say about Corbin Burns. For whatever reason, the bet likes Robbie Ray more than Corbin Burns tonight. Just by a little bit, but you get a discount on him also. And so that makes things really interesting. If you just want to play Corbin Burns, like, go ahead. Like, I'm not like a big Robbie Ray truther. The bet in general is actually lower on Robbie Ray than other systems. Robbie Ray has not been very good so far this year. The velocity's down, but the bet knows all this. So like, it's just really interesting kind of the projection that we're getting on Ray tonight. Yeah, I think Joe Musgrove is going to be kind of like on DraftKings, like the popular pairing with Burns. But even that, the bet kind of prefers Cole Irvin. You get a pretty significant discount with him. He's 6'3" on DraftKings, and he's a decent pitcher. He's facing, he's in a pretty good matchup against Baltimore. They're taking a big park downgrade going into Oakland. And so the bat is like, well, just kind of save some money and take Cole Irvin instead. So, I mean, that's kind of the bat's cash take. You play two of those four guys with, I mean, it kind of prefers Ray and Irvin. So, I mean, especially in GPPs, where Burns and Musgrove are going to be the more popular ones, like, go heavier on Ray and Irvin.
Okay. Let's get some of those GPP takes here from Squirrel, as if you've ever been to a live final, you have probably met him there because it's what he does. Squirrel, what are your pitching takes?
Yeah, it's interesting because I almost have the opposite take. So I feel like Carty was saying, like, he likes the lower owned guys in cash. I actually kind of like the higher owned guys in GPPs because I like Burns and Musgrove. I think if I'm going to take like a high owned pitcher, I want it to be a guy that can get a lot of strikeouts. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting just looking at the strikeout props. I think like Burns is up there much higher than Ray. And actually, I think there's a thought you could maybe go overweight Burns, even if he's like 50% ownership, and then bet the over on the strikeout prop for Robbie Ray. And you're kind of balancing out your DFS play with your with your sports betting. But I like Corbin Burns. I do like Joe Musgrove as well. I mean, I'm definitely going to have some Robbie Ray as well, but I'm probably going to be like matching the field with him. Nathan Eovaldi, and then I like Walker Buehler as well. He might be like overpriced, but sometimes like that's going to drive ownership down. So yeah.
Okay, that is interesting. Are any of these pitchers that we mentioned in Kansas City?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Good. Okay, that makes me feel better. I forgot to do a weather update. There's just some lingering, nagging showers around Kansas City, and it's just it didn't look like they were going to be there, but there they are. So they're going to have to play through some light rain in Kansas City. I expect that's what they're going to do. So a chance of a delay in Kansas City, a chance of a delay in New York, but a lower chance. Either way, a chance of a delay in New York and Kansas City. Any delays that we would see in New York would be very brief, and I don't think it's very likely. Does that New York pitchers? Do we have interest there? I don't know.
That's
not really.
I don't think it's on the slate.
Oh, even better. Oh, that's what I like to hear. Okay, great. Alex says, talk more Chris Archer, emoji heart eyes. Squirrel?
So I'm not a huge fan of Archer because I think he's still limited. So that kind of limits his upside for tournaments. I actually like maybe Kansas City as a sneaky stack because I think Minnesota bullpen hasn't looked good so far this year. Kansas City's got some guys that have power. They tend to be cheap. So I actually like Kansas City as a stack a little bit more than Chris Archer. Because I think if he's limited to like 80 pitches, that kind of limits his tournament winning upside.
Okay, well, this is a great transition into stacks. So Squirrel, I'll let you keep rolling here. You like Kansas City a little bit. Is there a chalk stack? Do you like it? And what do you like off of that other than Kansas City?
So yeah, the chalk stack is definitely going to be the Phillies just because they're in Colorado. So they've got the highest implied run total.
Yeah. Well, last time they were the chalk stack in Colorado, had the highest implied run total. And what happened there?
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I think there's a strong argument for fading them because I think they're going to be extremely highly owned. They just like face planted last night. There's like 20 to 22 teams on the slate. So if you're seeing like a Phillies stacks getting like 20% plus ownership, like I'm definitely going to pivot. I think you can pivot to Colorado. I think Colorado is going to be a lot less popular if you like the Phillies Colorado game. Like I don't want to speak to like weather. It just seems like these April Colorado games just never hit. Like it just never hits the over. Like we're looking for 15 runs, and you might see that in Colorado in August. But it seems like it's weather. It's just super cold in Colorado. The ball's just not flying out like it does in the summer. So the stacks that I'm really looking at are the stacks maybe a little bit farther down the list. Like Boston, I think is third with implied run total. So I like them. I like Kansas City, like I mentioned. Like the other side of that game as well, Minnesota. Like you start to see stack ownership at like very low single digits. But these teams could absolutely get there. They have power. They're facing a pitcher that might be limited, so you might be seeing extended bullpen. And then if they start turning the order over again, maybe they're just letting a bullpen pitcher out to dry.
Okay, great. Carty, some stack interest for you?
Yeah, so like Philly and Colorado, I do think are the best. Obviously, we haven't been seeing these huge run totals there the way we kind of expect. But after that, the bat actually likes a lot of stuff that it doesn't look like is going to be very high owned. Part of it's because we have a lot of aces on this slate, and people are just generally going to shy away from playing teams against aces. But like the Dodgers are the Dodgers. They're like insanely good, even though it's kind of a watered down lineup tonight. I think between that and them facing Max Fried, like people are going to shy away, but the Dodgers are outside of course. They project as the best offense on the slate. So I like the Dodgers. The Red Sox against Kikuchi, it doesn't look like it's going to be very high owned. The Braves against Walker Buehler. I don't know about this. Like they project for really low ownership, but I'm really curious to see what people do because they're just so egregiously priced on DraftKings, not on Fanduel, but on DraftKings. They're just like all basically free. And that's stupid because like Walker Buehler's fine, but like guys shouldn't be free against him. So I like the Braves and I like the Diamondbacks in this second game of this doubleheader. I think the Diamondbacks are pretty solid.
Okay, excellent. Let's talk some hitters. Carty, you can lead us off here position by position. Let's start just at catcher and then incorporate the FanDuel position of catcher first base as you do that.
Yeah, so I don't think we have a lineup here yet for Arizona in the second game, but we do get that on the slate on DraftKings. And Dalton Varsho is one of the better hitting catchers in baseball. He usually hits like leadoff, which is really good. He's 3.6K against a pretty mediocre pitcher, below average pitcher. So I like Varsho quite a bit as a cash play. You can go up to Real Muto if you want because it's Coors Field, and Kyle Freeland's a bad pitch to contact lefty with a wide platoon split. So like all of these Phillies righties should be really good plays. So if you have the money to get up to Real Muto, great. Otherwise, I think Varsho's your guy, or play guys in your stacks. Like Travis d'Arnaud is the catcher for the Braves, and he is 2K. Like he's a decent hitting catcher, but all these Braves are free. So like you want to fill your catcher spot in your Brave stack, like do that.
Okay, makes sense. Squirrel.
Yeah, the guy that really stands out to me in terms of tournament for catcher is Salvi Perez, just because I'm looking for guys in a low run environment. I want a guy that can hit 2 home runs. Mm-hmm. And if that happens to catcher position with Salvi Perez, like he's probably the one guy that can really do that. That's the guy that I'm interested in. I think like JT Realmuto is going to be really highly owned. Varsho leading off, like I think he's a good cash game play, but
and to confirm, he is indeed leading off.
Yeah, and then maybe like Mitch Garver, like hitting third for Texas, or Austin Nola.
Okay, excellent. Take us to first base.
Sure. So I think the guy that's going to be really highly owned.
Actually, before you take us to first base, let's go back to the FanDuel position of catcher first. Okay. Are there catchers that you're interested in there, or are you just running straight to first?
I think the only guys I'd be really interested in are probably Mitch Garver and Salvi Perez. Like Salvi Perez, probably much more so.
Okay.
Rest of the guys, it's going to be first base because Reese Hoskins is projecting really well. I think Kyle Schwarber is going to be highly owned as well.
Yeah, all right.
I guess JT Realmuto is
take us right into first. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then at first base, it's Hoskins. I think he's going to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate. Christian Walker in that Arizona game. Then Vlad Guerrero as well. I don't like the Blue Jay stack a lot, but I like Vlad as a one-off. CJ Crone and Hunter Dozier. I really like the Royals a lot more than they're projected, just because I think we don't know what we're going to get from Chris Archer. So that I like that kind of variance in tournaments.
Okay. Just answered a question that came in, which were, what are your thoughts on Chris Archer? And your answer was, we don't know what we're going to get from Chris Archer.
Yeah.
Chris Archer only threw, I think, 63 pitches in his first start. And this isn't a team that generally pushes their pitchers a lot anyway. Like, you're probably getting 80 at absolute most 85 pitches out of Archer today. And it's a slate with so much pitching to like. I don't think he's necessary.
Okay. Carty first.
Yeah, it's a lot of the guys. It's a lot of guys we just mentioned. The Phillies guys are obviously really, really good. Reese Hoskins is like so far and away projected above everybody else today. He's awesome. Schwarber is awesome. Even though it's lefty-lefty, Schwarber's still great. He's 3-3 on Fanduel. The Rockies guys, Crone, are going to be good. And then you're kind of getting into more contrarian stuff. Like Matt Olson is one of the best hitters in baseball, and he's 3.4K tonight on DraftKings because he's against Walker Buehler, I guess, or whatever. So like he's awesome. Squirrel mentioned Christian Walker. I really like the Diamondbacks tonight. Christian Walker is a big part of that. I'm kind of mentioned liking the Red Sox, especially over on FanDuel. Bobby Dahlbeck is a guy that I like quite a bit tonight. So yeah, there's a lot of first base.
Okay. Take us to second, Carty.
All right. Second base. Gene Segura is hitting leadoff for the Phillies tonight. He's been moved up in the order. He'd been hitting mostly like 6 or so, but he's hitting leadoff tonight. Got the platoon advantage against Freeland. He's in Coors. Like he's great. Trevor Story in your Red Sox stacks or even as a one-off, I like quite a bit. Otherwise, you're kind of, I think, just like scraping the barrel. Like on FanDuel, Story's only 3K. On DraftKings, he's expensive. On FanDuel, you probably just play Story. There are like other guys, if you need to, I guess, save more money, like Aledmus Diaz or Abraham Toro or Nick Senzel, like any of those guys like are fine, but Story really is in cash, at least, very easy to get to.
Squirrel.
Yeah, it's not a great position. There's a lot of guys that are hitting leadoff, and that's kind of nice. Like Kiki Hernandez, Marcus Semien, Colton Wong. So it might be a position to just take the leadoff man for your stack, like Whit Merrifield. So I guess on FanDuel, you've got Trey Turner at second. So yeah, I mean, Trevor Story, I like a lot with the Red Sox, especially if you're on FanDuel.
Okay, let's go to third. Squirrel, you can take us there.
Sure. So I like Bobby Witt. Just with that Kansas City's, he's a rookie, obviously, but he's somebody that's got some appeal for me if you're playing a Kansas City stack. Manny Machado, had a big game. I think it was just last night. Chris Bryant in Coors, that's somebody that's got some appeal. Justin Turner and Anthony Rendon.
Carty.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw Alec Boehm into the mix for the Phillies because the Phillies do project as just the clear best offense tonight. On FanDuel, the Red Sox, though, are, they're all kind of too cheap. Christian Arroyo is 2.1K, so if you need to save some money, I like him. Chris Bryant on the other side of the Coors game is good. On DraftKings, you have another cheap Brave. You have Austin Riley for 2.9K. I mentioned liking the Dodgers a lot. Justin Turner is underpriced there. So there is a good amount at third base to like tonight.
All right, take us to short, Carty.
Yep. Top projected guy is Trey Turner. He is really expensive on DraftKings, also kind of prohibitive on FanDuel also. But in your Dodger stacks, I like Turner quite a bit, and I do think that he's going to go under-owned, as most of the Dodgers are tonight. Bogarts in your Red Sox stacks. Trevor Story on FanDuel is second base or shortstop eligible. I think you probably play him at second. I think, well, I guess you can do it either way. But if you're playing him at second and you're looking for a shortstop, you have Didi Gregorius in Coors, Brendan Rodgers in Coors. Like in cash games, you don't have to get too cute. Like you're playing a bunch of Coors guys, you're playing some of these cheaper Red Sox, and that's kind of your cash build. On DraftKings, maybe more of a conversation. You have like Jeremy Pena leading off tonight for Houston for 3,200, who projects decently. You have Nick Gordon hitting fifth for Minnesota tonight at 2.1K. Shortstop is a position where I think you can definitely think about saving some money.
Okay, Squirrel.
Yeah, it is like the pricing differences probably are most glaring at shortstop for DraftKings versus FanDuel, just because you can get guys so cheap. Like Nick Gordon's 2,100. He's hitting fifth for the Twins. I like that game. Then you have to potentially go over. Jeremy Pena as well with the Astros. He has a 3,200. He's leading off for Houston. Then Trey Turner, Bo Bichette maybe is somebody, another Toronto guy that I like at the position. Then looking at FanDuel shortstop, Bobby Witt, and then Jorge Polanco and Marcus Semien as well.
Okay, take us to shortstop.
Wait, that was shortstop, right?
Excuse me, take us to the outfield.
Thank you. Yeah.
Also, I'm tweeting real quick, and I might as well, which is why I was distracted. I might as well bring this in. If we get a late start announcement in New York, don't be overly concerned with it. There's this pretty healthy little shower that's about to go over Citi Field in the next 30 minutes or so. I wouldn't be shocked if, since this game literally just ended, and the next one will be moving in the next 30 minutes to an hour, I wouldn't be shocked if they late start until the rain moves through, in which case they'd call a late start and it would still be fine.
I think it's not on the slate. So I think the game doesn't exist in my head, because I think there's such a close amount of time between the last one ending and the next one starting. They don't put that on the slate.
Okay, interesting. Good to know. Thank you. More proof that I do not play. When people say Kevin's trying to tell the weather one way so that he can make money playing, I don't play. So I'm just doing weather.
I mean, it still is a game though. And there are sports betting reasons to care about it.
Sure.
So that is good to know.
Yeah, I will still tweet about it, but that is excellent information. Anyways, to the outfield, please.
Sure. So that's where you really have to make a decision on the Philadelphia guys, because I think the really appealing Philadelphia guys are in the outfield, just Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos. So if you're Kyle Schwarber, so if you're playing a Philly stack, that could be your outfield right there. I like to pivot because I just think with 20 to 22 teams, the chances the Phillies are the highest production stack are not as high as their ownership will dictate. So I like Kiki Hernandez for Boston, Mookie Betts, Charlie Blackmon, George Springer, Azuna, Kepler, Ohtani, like anybody that can hit a home run and it is not going to be extremely highly owned, right? You saw that with Jordan Alvarez and Christian Yelich last night. Like if these guys hit a grand slam or if these guys hit 2 home runs like that, they're in the winning lineup. So I'm going to probably take some of my Phillies exposure and spread it around to some of those guys.
Carty?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same guys. Like obviously all the Coors guys are in play and great cash options. Castellanos, Harper, Schwarber, Blackmon, Bryant, Vierling, the whole deal. Outside of them, some of the guys that I like that are kind of sneakier, I don't mind some of these cheap Reds outfielders against Musgrove. Not as a full stack, but maybe a mini stack or as one-offs. You're going to get some leverage. They project pretty well. They're really cheap. A guy like Tommy Pham in particular is actually a really, really good hitter, and he's never priced like one. Once he starts to heat up, you're going to see his price go way up, and that is going to happen. Right now, though, he's way too cheap, and so I like him just in general, and I like that you get some leverage from him. So I think he's interesting. I mean, who else are we talking about here? Oh yeah, Braves guys. Marcelo Zuna is like way too cheap. So yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about in the outfield. But in cash, you're just loading up on Coors here. There's like 8 good outfielders from Coors.
Okay. Well, we still have 10 whole minutes for QQs, which should be about perfect. So I will scroll up a little bit and we'll dive into it. Let's start with amateur hour. Squirrel, I'm going to give this to you. This is high. He always likes to specify this is high dollar. He doesn't play in my tournaments. He doesn't play $1. This is high dollar DKGPPs, Nola versus Varsho.
I'd probably go Nola. I think Varsho will be higher owned. And I for some reason, when I think of Varsho, I don't have the stats in front of me. I don't think of somebody with a lot of power. So I'd probably go Nola.
Okay, great. Achilles says, "Hey, Carty, why are the Braves so cheap? Was this the one where they're just too cheap against a good pitcher, but they're
I really have no idea. Like, it's just a clear misprice. And it's funny because it's against Walker Buehler, who's like the most overrated ace in baseball. So it just makes them all the more appealing.
What happened? Like, I swear a year ago, we were all on the Walker Buehler train, or maybe a year or two ago. We're like, oh, this guy, he's just a young stud, but he's really going to be great. And now he's overrated?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is great, but he's been overperforming his ERA by a lot for quite a while now. Like, he's like a top 20 pitcher in baseball. He's not a top 5 pitcher. And people think he's like a top 3 pitcher, or at least coming into this year, a lot of people seem to.
And the Braves are priced like he is that.
Yeah, and the Braves are a really good offense. It's not like we're talking about the Pirates here. Like, the Braves are one of the best offenses in baseball.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Moore says, "Hey, Carty, who did you like for FanDuel pitcher? Cash, I assume."
I mean, honestly, I don't want to tell people not to play Burns because he's going to be popular. He's probably going to pitch really well.
He's probably the right dude.
Probably Burns, but the bat really thinks it's fine to play Ray or Irvin.
Okay. All right. Squirrel, DKGPP. What about a Blue Jays stack? They seem extremely low owned.
They do. I think you can go there. Who are they? They're facing Eovaldi, so I kind of like him as a pitcher. But I mean, they've definitely got some power, so I think you can go there.
Okay. Achilles says, Carty, and I'm just reading it like he said it. Manny Macchiato, I assume is Machado, but just reading it how it is.
That's the whole thing. Just Manny.
It just says Manny Macchiato. So.
Yeah, and GPP is sure he projects well enough, but it kind of needs some context.
All right, Squirrel. Better approach to a single entry DraftKings tournament: chalky Philly mini with Minnesota main stack, or KC mini with San Diego main stack. Thank you.
I would do the second one. The Phillies Minnesota combination is literally the thing I get is like my highest projected. I think it's going to be true for a lot of people because you can fit in some of the Minnesota guys really cheaply. So I would go with the second one. I think the second one's going to have much lower ownership and has about the same chance of success.
Excellent. Good answer. Okay. Aside, my favorite questions. Am I stupid? Carty, am I stupid for leaving Irvin in FanDuel cash with all the Philly big bats, or is that more of a GPP route?
You're not going to have the chalk build by doing that.
Well, this is cash, to be clear.
Yeah, right. Which in cash, like you kind of generally you almost want to lean that way. But projection wise, like that is fine. I don't think you're stupid to do that.
Okay, we did just get a start time for Giants Mets at 7:30 Eastern, and it's going to be raining just at 7:30 Eastern. So again, if it's irrelevant because it's not on the slate. But anyways, that might get pushed back. Okay. Dan Jan says, "Can I get your thoughts on Kikuchi?" Squirrel?
It's not on my radar.
By the way, lock in 5 minutes. Squirrel, sorry.
Yeah, he's not a guy that's on my radar. Just doesn't have the straight. Yeah, he's just not on my radar.
Okay, fair enough. FanDuel Cash, Carty. Sherman's Tanks says Elidmus Diaz and Bogarts or Wong Bomb.
Or what?
It was Wong and Bomb, but I tied it together into Wong Bomb. But Wong and Bomb. Bohm?
I think it's probably the first one for me.
Is that Bohm or Baum? I should know this since I'm going to have to say it 160 times.
I think it's Bohm,
I
right?
thought so too. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Dan Jan, hey, how do you feel about rounding out your stacks with 3 Braves? Squirrel?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, like we said, I think they're going to be really low owned, but I think that there's obviously talent and power there. So I think go for it.
Weeble, DK Cash, Realmuto, Arias, Larnack, or Blackman, Urshela, Varsho.
I mean, it's close. Like, I don't love Larnack or Urshela. I guess I lean towards the second one, but I'd probably find a way off of him.
Okay. All right. MA says, hey, Roth, question for you regarding Mets Giants. Is there potential for an in-game delay? Yes. And he says, I'm asking because I'm thinking about betting it, but I don't want to if a pitcher's night could be ended early. Yes, there's potential for an in-game delay, but I don't think it's very likely because it looks like the heaviest of the rain is going to come right around first pitch. They're not idiots. They'll know what's happening. They would just late start. So unless they royally screw it up and or something unusual happens with rain, there still are a few more showers.
Yeah,
bottom line, yes,
the Scherzer strikeout over looks pretty good there. So a delay would not be good for that.
I see. Yes, there's a chance your starting pitcher's night could be ended early, but I don't think it's a good enough chance that you should pull a bet that you like because of it. And hopefully that's a good enough answer. Raymond, DKGPP, last man in, Kepler or Blackman? Squirrel.
Probably Charlie Blackman.
Okay. DUI, DKGPP, Carty, any ace you want to stack against just to be difference in hopes of him having a potential off day? Good question.
Yeah, Fried Bueller.
I knew you were going to say Walker Bueller.
Yeah, I mean, I wish one of them was going to actually pick up some ownership. They're not going to, but I still think that both of those offenses are among the better offenses on the slate regardless.
Okay. I had to read this to make sure this wasn't trying to get me to say like Philip McCracken or one of those fake names. But Carolina guy says, why is C. McHugh showing in projections in FanDuel? Is that a fake name? It sounds like a fake name.
No, that's Colin McHugh. Is he, I don't know. Is he being used as an opener tonight or something? I don't think so.
I don't know. We don't have the answer. If we get you the answer, we'll let you know. We got 2-3 minutes left. If you're watching on YouTube and you're enjoying the show for free, thanks to our sponsor, FanDuel, hit that like and subscribe button for us. That'd be awesome. And then we'll pop up into your feed more and you'll be like, oh, they're doing that free, awesome show that they do. So hit like and subscribe. Beaner says, hey, Squirrel. Yeah.
So just a heads up for our sponsor, FanDuel, they actually are locking 5 minutes later because we don't have the Washington game on that slate.
Oh.
So it doesn't lock until 7:10. So you can still get into some contests.
Excellent. Good stuff. Beaner says, hey, Squirrel, I've got 45 hundo left in my util spot on FanDuel. I need a good play for a GPP. And if I've taken anything from my man Cheese, it's that if you're spending up, you're spending down. He doesn't care. The guy better be able to go yak. We need a dude who can go yard. 4,500 in the util on FanDuel. Get me somebody who can go yard.
But Vlad Guerrero.
Wow, he can go yard. He's done.
And that a few times already this year.
Yeah, he's won a few 2-3 times in one game this year. Dan Jan, what do you not like about Kikuchi? Did Dan Jan ask the original question about Kikuchi? Let me see. He did.
Because I just think there's more guys with higher strikeout upside. So that's why I think I'm not landing on Kikuchi.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not like super cheap priced either.
He's facing a good offense. He's in one of the best parks in baseball for offense. He's got an extreme hitters umpire. Like, there's just not a whole lot to like about Kikuchi tonight, I don't think.
One thing I love about baseball is that things can. All right, so you get pitcher versus team, but then all these little other impacts, like, well, there's the weather, and then there's the ump, and then there's the park, and then there's the lineup that they brought out. And all of these little factors add up to a significant amount. So that it's not just how good is this pitcher versus this team. It's all of those other little factors. That's what I most like and hate about baseball. But Carty, I mean, that's what the bat does, right?
That's what the bat does. It looks at all these things, it puts them all together, and it does make a difference. Guys will project better or worse than you might expect because of XYZ other factors that maybe you're not considering.
Yeah. I always find that to be interesting.
Oh, the other thing with Kikuchi, he has a really big platoon split, and he's got 7 righties in the lineup tonight. So there's really a lot working against him.
Okay. Someone just asked for a weather check in Kansas City, so we'll do that. It's just looks like I thought it would look, which is not ideal, but I think they're just going to play in light rain. They're just off and on light showers because that's what they're gonna have to do. So I think they're gonna do it. Hey, we hit the lock on DK. We'll still take all of these remaining questions here. We'll go to J Sam Squirrel FanDuel single entry. Do you like the Perez, Dozier, and Mondesi mini stack?
Sure. I mean, that's going to be extremely low owned, but it's got upside. So yeah, single entry. That's exactly what you want to do in single entry, because like the Phillies are going to be like 35% owned, like as a stack on single entry. So
great, love it. D Montgomery says, and also. Everybody wanted to play the Phillies last time because it was so good and they sucked. And Carty doesn't believe in hot streaks or cold streaks, but I do. So I say, you don't play any Phillies. Can you just fade the Phillies completely, or is that insane?
If you're doing 150 lineups, I wouldn't fade the Phillies entirely. But I'd try to be under the field, because I think the field is going to be like 20-something% with Philly stack. So I go way under that.
Are you saying if you're doing 150, you still can't fade them in any of them? Or you mean don't fade them in all 150?
I wouldn't fade them in all 150.
Gotcha. Okay. Just wanted to make sure what I was saying wasn't completely ridiculous. All right. Montgomery says San Diego and Houston stack FanDuel single entry. Carty, do you hate me for even suggesting to fade the best team right now based on the fact that they didn't perform well last night?
I'm totally fine if you want to fade the Phillies for like game theory reasons or whatever. Like you can build good lineups without Phillies. You shouldn't be doing it because they were bad last night. That's a bad reason.
That's why I want to do it though. That seems like a good reason to me. All right, Carty, San Diego and Houston stack FanDuel single entry.
Say it one more time.
San Diego and Houston stack FanDuel single entry.
I mean, I guess it's fine. It seems probably overly contrarian for single entry. But I'm not super on San Diego. They're fine.
All right. Gamble, FanDuel GPP Squirrel, Correa Martinez versus Bogarts Betts.
Bogarts Betts.
FanDuel Cash, Carty, 3v3 coming your way. Rogers, Harper, and Schwarbs versus Bogarts, Kepler, Segura.
The first one.
Beaner, last spot in the outfield, Otani, Harper, or Castellan. That dude whose name I literally haven't been able to pronounce in 5 years. The Casta one.
So is that GPP?
Yeah, it's he didn't say. He just said last spot in the outfield, Otani, Harper, or Castellanos.
I think for GPP, I think you should definitely go Otani, because I think he's like the exact example of a guy that can hit 2 home runs. And if the Phillies stall in Coors, then you're vaulting over like every other lineup.
Okay. Weeble says chance of a PPD in Kansas City. What if they decide to delay? I just think it's a perfect example of a game that I should stress over and you guys should pretend doesn't have weather worries.
You have it yellow green. Like, guys, I'll be the one to say it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Like, could I imagine in my weather mind where I've seen way crazier things happen that it gets delayed and then another shower comes up an hour later and then it could I envision it? Has it happened before? Yes. Should we think it's going to happen and plan as if it is? Absolutely not.
Like a 1% outcome. So
that's
build accordingly.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So let me stress about it all night because that's what I do. But you just pretend it's not going to happen because it probably won't. Hey, Beaner says, you like any Cubs? You like any Cubs? Either of you?
Not especially.
No.
Yeah, I've got them as like the lowest power stack on the slate, and they've got like a sub 4 implied run total.
That's shocking. This was a wide open question. Was you like any players on this team from either of you in any format? And the answer is essentially not really. Yeah. Boy, that's rough. All right. Justin Steele in a GPP. Carty?
I'm not a big Justin Steele believer. I don't think the matchup's like awesome. I think there's better choices.
All right. We got 2 questions left and we're out of here. Achilles, DK Cash. This is a 4v4. Achilles is really getting my goat today. I already got warned by the RG bot for swearing at him. 4v4s, I'll allow it, but I don't approve. Carty, this is coming to you. Realmuto, Hoskins, Pena with Irving, or Sanchez, Tellez, Correa with Burns.
Yeah, make me tell someone not to play Corbin Burns. I'd go with the Irvin side. I think I would.
Okay, excellent. I like it. DY says DKGBP. Squirrel, name a position player or 2 that's not affected by a lefty or righty pitcher. Is there anyone out there who just doesn't care? Maybe a switch hitter, even they should care.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that don't have like pronounced splits, but you can look that up.
You can have guys, generally hitter splits are super noisy. So like there's very few guys, there will be some with like smaller splits, but everyone's going to be affected to some degree. And generally to a much larger degree than the actual numbers are going to make you think.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Like literally no one is going to be as good from both sides of the plate. No.
Why would you expect them to be? Like,
how would it even make any sense? We all know how we live our lives. Even if you're a switch hitter, like you have one side that you feel more natural with, right? You have to.
Yeah. And just the way pitches work, if you're a righty and the ball is trailing away from you, it's going to be harder to get than the ball that is not trail. Like it's just
sure.
Like it just makes sense.
Right. I was thinking of a switch hitter where like, all right, I'll just switch to match that. But even then, I don't know. Is anyone as good from both sides of the plate ever?
There's some guys that are kind of close. I think Trout is maybe one of them because he's a freak, but like most guys are not, most guys you want them against the opposite handed pitcher. You want every hitter in baseball against the opposite handed pitcher, all else equal.
Right. Okay. We got 2 more questions. Squirrel, if you only had one, if you had only built one lineup, I think in FanDuel single entry contests, would you fade the Phillies?
Would I fade the Phillies?
Yeah. If you only built one lineup.
Absolutely. Because there's so many people, they're playing single entry and are like, well, who's the top stack? The Phillies. I'm going to play them. And so they are going to be extremely highly owned in single entry.
My guy. I love that answer. All right. Last question, Dan Jan. DKGPP, what about Kyle the Gun Gibson?
That can't really be his nickname, Kyle the Gun Gibson.
It can't be. And I feel like he must suck. Otherwise, we'd have been talking about him.
I don't think you can do it. Yeah. I think that's way too cute.
Yeah. All right. I think Squirrel nodding in agreement there. Okay, we're gonna take one more question because I try to get all the questions, but we're way behind. FanDuel Cash, 2v2, Carty, Schwarbs, Rogers, or Segura?
Yeah, it's definitely Schwarber Rogers. It's not close.
There you go. And with that, we've taken all the questions. We've given all the advice. I think it's time to get on out of here. So for Squirrel, for Carty, for our amazing production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.